Welcome to the Secret Teachings, Friday, April 3rd, 2026. This is not the show intro yet, but I wanted to start just a few minutes early and welcome everybody in the chat room on YouTube and also X and Facebook. Put on this list because the show tonight is very in-depth and we don't have a lot of time to take much commentary from the audience because it's such a complex subject that I'm still trying to work out myself. So I wanted to say hello to Joe Ryder, who's in the chat. Deborah is also here. Diane Perry is here. Patriot Girl, hello. Pound Town. Marilyn Kluger is here. Leonard is here. Hello, Leonard. Antonio is here. Hello, Antonio. And Chris V. We also have Barnaby Jones and Through the Darkness. Hello, hello. We have Hermit Ventures is here. Dr. I believe that's Jesse is here. Hello, Dr. Jesse. And if I scroll down through the rest of this, I know we have some more people coming in. Misto Stokos is here. Hello, Misto Stokos. Rita Moore. Hello, Rita Moore. I think Rita's over on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. And we also have a few other people jumping into the chat. It's going pretty quick here, so excuse me. EM Mr. 3 is here. Combat Medic is here. Hello. Welcome to the show tonight. Tim Curley is here. Hello, Tim. Happy Good Friday to you, Tim, as well. And looks like Flux is here, and we have more people pouring in. So we're going to start the show now. I wanted to take just a minute or two to note the listeners in the chat room, get the introduction going, and we will get on with the presentation tonight.
Hello? Anybody home?
Today, I want you to open your mind.
I've almost come to the conclusion that the story is so damning that the mass of people can't deal with it.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques to get people actually to love their servitude.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
To change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, then you have a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices.
As you connect the dots between different people, organizations, religions, history, suddenly the picture starts to form.
The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men.
Someone born in the United States is not more special than someone born in Mexico. They're just vehicles for the consciousness to experience.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
It was learned that the aliens had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children. Music, television, books.
Prey on children's innocence.
How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc is now in the possession of the Army.
Too many others know what's happening out there, and no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for Mankind in the Twilight Zone.
About time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth.
If you don't connect the dots, it's just a mass of what's all this about.
2026. Preparing for the End, the title of tonight's show. Jesus returns, aliens invade, and, well, life just kind of goes on as usual. Nothing really much changes, at least. If you're not directly affected by conflict and war, and you're not directly affected by living under a religiously fanatical, extremist, eschatologically psychotic government, life just goes on. Even if you do live in those conditions, life just kind of goes on. You still get up and go to work. I mean, that's how things go in a time of war. You live in a country where there is war, or there's some kind of uprising or coup against the government, or there's civil war. People still go to work. People still do the things they normally do. You might lose power. You might not have essential services, but life just kind of goes on. And I imagine that when these so-called aliens invade, life will just kind of go on. And pretty sure that when Jesus, whatever people see that to be, comes back, we'll pretty much have life just normal the way that it always has been. I really don't think anything much is going to change. You might disagree with my initial opening statements. That's fine. If you can't tell, I'm both passionate about the occult elements of what we're going to discuss tonight, but I'm also sort of checked out of it. I just don't really care. And it's beyond the point of losing interest in it. It's just kind of comical, but comical in a way where I've heard the joke before, and I might go, huh, yeah, I remember that joke. That was kind of funny. And then I move on. I'm not really concerned with it. Let's start the show off by saying this. Let me say this to you directly as an audience, whether you're in the streaming platforms tonight or if you're in the audio archive. This show's been on air for 16 years. And I don't know if there's been, in my 16 years of radio, a convergence of topics like we have tonight. I don't know if you've noticed this. I've certainly noticed this. I've noticed that there seems to be a pretty direct parallel between the upcoming idea of UFO disclosure or alien disclosure, or whatever term they're calling it this week, and going to the moon. And we'll play some reverse speech about that as well that ties into the disclosure narrative. And also connections to this idea that Jesus is about to come back, or the Messiah is going to arrive. Well, the Antichrist for the Christians, but the Messiah for the Jews is going to arrive. And considering that Ancient Aliens is based on the work of a Jewish scholar, I can't help but wonder if there's a connection between all of these things. Going to the moon, getting disclosure about alien life, and also a war that's quite literally being scripted to the theme, to the tune is being scored to the tune of Armageddon and the Apocalypse. It seems like there's a connection between all of these things. It's, for those of you who grew up in the 90s and watched Nickelodeon, it is like an episode of Blue's Clues. What could Blue want to do with all these things? What could Blue want to do with a mission to the moon? What could Blue want to do with, Blue is the dog in this kids show, if you don't know that. But what would Blue want to do with going to the moon? What would Blue want to do with this other clue of Armageddon framing and narrative crafting? And what would Blue want to do with UFO disclosure? Kind of seems like there's a connection. And I don't mean a conspiratorial connection. I mean, there's some sort of shift happening. There's something occurring that I can't put my finger on. I'm not really sure what it is. And that's why I'm doing tonight's show, because I don't really know what it is. Let's start off with playing a little reverse speech here from our good friend David Oates. David Oates has done a lot of reverse speech. As you know, if you don't know, he's done it for popes, he's done it for presidents, he's done it for common average folks, he's done it for people who are in ufology. And whatever you take out of reverse speech, so be it. But let's just listen to one of these reverse speeches that David Oates found from the Artemis crew. Take a listen to this.
It's being exceeded by the future crews. That's why we're here, to build a legacy for the future. The Blood Mystery. The Blood Mystery. The Blood Mystery.
Now, I heard what sounded like a void, and I did hear what I thought was gray. David Oates interpreted that as avoid this gray, something that he says is coherent with other reversals from other astronauts. Obviously, you could extrapolate that and say, well, they're talking about gray aliens. Maybe. I really don't know. I'm just simply submitting this for your consideration. I'd also like to submit some other things to you tonight for your consideration. Here is something that has been circling the internet. I think it's an old image too. This is a picture of what is supposed to be, it's so horrible. You can't see this. What it is it's supposed to be a downed American fighter jet, which clearly isn't down. I mean, they didn't, it's on its wheels. I don't think that when you shoot a plane down, it lands on its wheels, unless it's like a cat, it always lands on its feet. And these are supposed to be Iranians that have captured this American pilot, and they're going to kill him because that's what the Iranians do. They're so evil. Oh my God. And, you know, I'm just so sick and tired of the double standards personally. I'm so sick and tired of how, even if that image were true, which it obviously isn't, it's a totally fake image. Even if that were true, like, what do people think happens in times of war? You fly over another country and you bomb their civilians, not even military targets, then you get shot down and then you get captured. And whether you're a prisoner of war or they execute you and make a video out of it as propaganda, what did you think was going to happen? You were going to get shot down and they were going to bring the pilot to, I don't know, to like a nice hotel to stay until he can get picked up. Like what is wrong with society? What is wrong with people? What is wrong with just the way that society can shift so drastically overnight? Peace president to this level of like North Korean or worse propaganda. The double standards. Oh, the Iranians can't shoot down our planes. You wait and see. It's going to be Operation Epic Fury Part 2. Well, why can't they shoot down our planes? It's war. You bomb them. Why can't they bomb you? It's not even that it's double standards, that it's propaganda. It's just really bad double standards. It's like really bad propaganda. It's like, it's childish. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. And yet people keep falling for it. Speaking of falling for it, here's something that is probably the biggest thing the public has fallen for a very long time. Let's listen to what President Trump had to say a couple of weeks ago. This is U.S. Department of State. I believe this was their X page or their Facebook page that posted this.
We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. I mean, the New York Times, you read the New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it. For instance, if I want to take down that power plant, that very big, powerful power plant, they can't do a thing about it. It's like, take me. That's all they can do. And yet, if you read the New York Times or if you watch ABC fake news or NBC fake news, you'd say it's a close battle.
Yeah, I'm confused because this was a couple of days ago, and the president said we won the war. It wasn't even really a war; it was a preemptive strike, and then it was a war. And then I found one New York Post article that posted both of the stories. Iran shot down a second American plane. I believe they've also hit a Black Hawk and might have taken that down as well. They took down an F-15. They took down a Warthog. And at least that's what the story is. That's what we're being told. I'm confused because the president told me we won the war. And I'm confused because he said they can't do anything about our planes flying over. I honestly, I think what might end up becoming a scarier scenario for the American public is not some distant enemy, but it might become the revelation that it's not just us that are kept from information and what's going on in the world. It might just be that, as dumb as Trump is on everything except real estate, I feel like they might have actually kept him in the dark to the point, and probably much of the military in the dark to the point where they actually convinced them that the Iranians are Stone Age people that have no IQ, not a low IQ. They have no IQ. They have no way to defend themselves. And then you just watch as they shoot down American planes. You watch aircraft carriers limp back into port. There's smoke and there's fire and there's billions of dollars of damage, but we weren't hit by a missile. We just have to get out of missile range so that we can assess the damage. And yet those missiles that hit the aircraft carrier that moved a little bit away so they couldn't hit it again, and they said they didn't hit it, also somehow flew to, how many miles away was Diego Garcia? Out in the middle of nowhere, but they somehow hit that. And that was probably 10, 15 times the distance of where why even talk about it? And really, why even concern ourselves with it? But I think the American public we've entered a new era. The level of lying it's not that it's bad or that it's even, that it's obvious. It's that it's childish. It's childish lying. We won the war. They can't even shoot our planes down. Well, it looks like they did shoot some planes down. So I'm confused. Okay, so that's another thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening. This is the guy that the main guy, the what would they call him? The chief operating officer, crew leader of the Artemis going to the moon. Let's listen to what he had to say. I might have to reload this page because X, for some reason, if you leave the page open, it doesn't want to play the video. Let me reload the page. Here we go. Possibly, I guess. Maybe it won't.
But
okay.
I'm going to try anyway. This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit. That is awesome. Like, we should, as humanity, we should take a brief moment to go, that's awesome. One of the things that we most asked for and look forward to is we are going to do a crew conference between Integrity and the International Space Station, the crew that's up there.
Now, I'm confused again here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we went to the moon in 1969. I remember that catchy jingle from the Disney Channel many years ago. We went to the moon in 1969, not 1970, but a year earlier, something like that. There was that Sheila Buff show. I remember watching that as a kid. I thought we went to the moon in 1969, so we never went to the moon? Or maybe, to be fair, maybe if you listen to what he said, maybe he meant something else.
But I'm going to try anyway. This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit.
Maybe he meant at the same time? I don't even have an opinion anymore. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know something else. I think there's somewhat of a kernel of truth, just not a lot, but there's a little essence of truth. 99% disinformation in the idea that, with the exception of Donald Trump, who is actually literally an actor, there's this idea that everything is staged. I don't believe everything is staged. I don't believe everybody is part of some scripted play. When I say scripting Armageddon, I mean using the motifs and the ideas that are popular with people, giving people those images in the media. I don't mean literally setting up Armageddon. It's more like Wag the Dog. It's a production. It's not real. It's not really a war. It's fake. But as Joe Ryder said, Capricorn 1. Now, this would be part 2, I guess. This would be Artemis 2, Capricorn 1, Artemis 2. Deborah in the chat said Neil Armstrong's an actor. I don't think he's an actor. I don't know if he's an actor. I don't really care one way or the other, but there is a kernel of truth to this idea that there are a lot of people in positions of influence who are certainly actors. I mean, most influencers are actors. And on that note, why don't I share my screen with you and show you something else? I put together a nice little collection of articles, and I even asked some questions to ChatGPT about this subject because I wanted to confirm what I knew and what I have as proof. And I wanted to see if ChatGPT would acknowledge it, and it won't. So I'm preferencing too much. Let me just show you what I have here. And everything I've mentioned so far, it's all going to start to come together as the show goes on. Here is the USA Today. Why the Artemis 2 crew matters historically for a moon mission. Let's see why they matter. Millions of eyes will be trained above the space coast and beyond, watching closely as the Artemis 2 crew makes its historic high-powered trek toward the moon. By the way, you would think that this would also be bigger news. Like, maybe I'm just living in Japan. I didn't fully know this was happening. Like, I knew that there was a mission. We had talked about the mythology of Artemis and whatnot before, goddess of the hunt, the moon. Obviously, that's why they named it Artemis. They're going to go to the moon. But I didn't I feel like I should have got a notification or something. Hey, we're going to go to the moon. Whether it's the first time, second time, third time, or Corey Good went and had a 20 in back. I felt like I should have got a notification about that. They should have said something. And maybe you got that in the US and I don't get it over here in Japan. I just feel like that should have been a bigger deal. I guess not. And it goes on to say, this is why it's so important, okay? In many ways, the crew, who are set to lift off as early as 6:24 p.m. Wednesday, April 1st, which is kind of funny that they do it on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. We're going to go to the moon. April Fools! We're in a studio in Nevada. Is more of a reflection of modern international relationships and in America at 250 years old than the stoic-minded astronauts who vaulted to the moon and back. It's a Corey Good 20 and back in the 1960s and 1970s. So, I mean, the fact that they launched on April 1st and the fact that the guy said, the guy that led the mission, this guy here, well, for some reason, it's not going to come up. That particular image is not going to come up. Wow. Maybe we're being attacked by, it is windy outside. So for those of you who are David Wilcock fans, that could be why the wind is really blowing outside. My pictures aren't working here. Oh, there it was for a split second. All right. Anyway, that's weird. But the guy that leads the crew, I'll tell you about him in a second. But he said, we have not been to the moon. We're going to go to the moon for the first time. Okay, that's Reed Wiseman. All right, fine. Okay, let's keep that name in mind. The Artemis 2 crew includes the first black man, the first woman, and the first Canadian to ever fly on a moon mission. Now, again, really shouldn't matter. Really shouldn't matter if they're black. Really shouldn't matter if they're a woman. Really shouldn't matter if they're white. Or really shouldn't matter if they're Canadian. Really shouldn't matter if they're I don't know if they're from Papua New Guinea and they have cougar. What does it matter? Who cares? You know how hard it is to become an astronaut? You know how many white people sign up to be astronauts and don't make the cut? You know how many white people the black guy beat out to make the cut? He didn't beat out anybody to make the cut because he was black. He beat him out because it was the best of the best of the best of the best, sir. With honor, men in black. He's just really excited to be here, and he doesn't know why. I wonder if Reed Wiseman knows why he's there. Maybe he is an actor. Reed Wiseman is the mission commander. And I want to point out something really interesting about Reed Wiseman. I would love to show you the image, but for some reason, it's not loading on my computer here. You can see it there on the screen, but it's not going to load. The next image loads, but this one doesn't load, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Maybe if I move it around. Nope, it's not going to load. It's an important image. It's a really important image because, well, you can see this other image on your screen right now. If you ask the internet, I actually didn't even know who the guy was. I asked the internet, I typed into Google, who's the guy that runs the mission? I just don't have the mental capacity to really be concerned or care because I wasn't even told about the moon mission. It's not that important, I guess. But it said Reed Wiseman. I was like, okay. And I just, out of curiosity, I said, is he Jewish? And the internet said, yep. According to GPT-5, Reed Wiseman is Jewish. I thought, okay, so you would think that they would make a note about that in the article. Hey, there's a guy he's a Jew and he's leading the mission. And you think that would be something that they would mention. Now, I guess if he's Jewish and he's leading the mission, then wouldn't that mean that if we're talking about Canadians and blacks and women, shouldn't his name be on that list? The fact that it's not, they just don't mention the fact that, oh, look, a Jew's going to the moon. And instead focus on blacks and Canadians and women is suspicious to me. But then again, he might not be a Jew, because if this picture that I want to pull up would actually pull up, it would show you that he reportedly is a Christian, which is kind of similar to that guy, that influencer guy, DC Drano, who was like an entertainment lawyer in the Jewish part of Los Angeles and I believe it was LA, Southern California. And then he decided to become a conservative something voice, and suddenly this liberal, leftist, Jewish entertainment lawyer became a Christian grifter, kind of like a bunch of other Jews that pretend to be conservative Christians, like the guy that Seth Dillon that runs the Babylon Bee, or the woman that runs Libs of TikTok, or the various conservative blonde influencers who are actually literally Israeli agents. So I just can't help but think that it's weird that of all the things that they would normally name and be proud of, we got blacks, we got women, we got maple leaves, but not that we have a Jew running it. I'm confused. You can tell that's going to be a theme already tonight. I'm really, really confused about all of this. Very, very, very confused. And before I even mentioned this Artemis thing, a moment ago I had said that there's a lot of the influencers that might not be actors per se, but that's the new form of acting. It's just like influencing. And what do you get? What do you get when you go back to the political stuff? Let's go back to the political stuff for a moment. Here's The Hill from 2025. I don't know if you've ever seen this story, but this is former Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale. And Brad Parscale registered as a foreign agent. That's the former Trump campaign manager. He registered as a foreign agent. If you don't believe me, here's his actual FAR registration. You can see the country is Israel at the bottom. You can see the date, 9/18/2025, and you can see his signature, Bradley Parscale. That's the same Bradley Parscale that is the Trump campaign manager before. Interesting. But what's more interesting than that is Salem Media Group. I think a lot of you who listen to radio are familiar with Salem Media Group. A lot of radio, a lot of podcasts under their different divisions. And Salem Media Group last year announced the appointment of a new chief strategy officer. Who was that? That was Brad Parscale. Interesting. So Trump's former campaign manager registered as an agent of Israel. He did that a few months after he became the director of Salem Media. Now that's really interesting. It's interesting for a couple of reasons. It's interesting because, well, on the surface, it just shows you that the president's political campaign was literally being run by someone who, I mean, if they registered as a foreign agent, they were a foreign agent before. It shows you that, first of all. And it shows you that you have a foreign agent running a lot of radio and podcasts. Now, for those of you who don't know about Salem Media Group, you might not think much of this. For those of you who do know about Salem Media Group, this is probably revelatory if you weren't aware of this already. Probably revelatory because this guy essentially runs most of the media that we consider to be super conservative and especially intimately connected to Turning Point USA. Interesting. And what would those what would those companies and what would those people involved, who would they be? Well, I have a nice little list here that I put together. Let's take a look at this list. I'm going to read it to you. It's a little list I put together. Parscale oversees the strategic direction of the network, that would be Salem, network's extensive talent roster, which includes prominent radio hosts like Hugh Hewitt, Larry Elder, Sebastian Gorka, Brandon Tatum. He also manages the integration of the Salem Podcast Network. Who are these podcasters, you might ask? Well, they are Josh Hammer, Dinesh D'Souza, Todd Starnes, and Laura Trump. Now, some of those names might be familiar in general. Some of them might be especially familiar if you know anything about Turning Point USA. And so I did a little bit of research to find some information on what position these people held or what influence they had through Turning Point USA. And it goes like this. Verify this if you want independently. I encourage you to do so. I know it might sound like we're bouncing around all over the place, but trust me, it'll all sort of come together as the show goes on if it hasn't for some of you already. I think the audience is pretty smart and knows what's going on for the most part. But maybe with the exception of, and when I was looking these names up, maybe with the exception of Hugh Hewitt, the rest of these people, all of the podcasters, the radio people, from Josh Hammer to Larry Elder, they're all intimately connected to Turning Point USA. And more, not just conservatives, not just GOP, they're like Turning Point USA specifically, explicitly. For example, Gorka and Elder, Sebastian Gorka and Larry Elder are literally, quote, influencers for Turning Point USA. They both appear at the talking events, the speaking events, the organization Turning Point USA holds all over the country. They're big names. Tatum is a keynote speaker. He's also the director, or was the director, of urban engagement through his Blexit Foundation, which was directly integrated into Turning Point USA's corporate structure. Josh Hammer is heavily involved, and you'll know Josh Hammer from one of the recent shows we did where we played clips of him repeating the same talking points that Laura Loomer was vomiting from her disgusting, botched face. And the same talking points that you also heard virtually every other influencer regurgitating and repeating over and over and over again about Iran and how there's going to be a big terrorist attack in the United States and it's going to be 10 times worse than 9/11. And, you know, even people that have severe mental disabilities online were like, oh, that's Israel going to do that and they're going to blame it on Iran. That's what that is. It's like that. What's that meme with I'm blanking on the actor's name. I don't hold those names in my head very well. One of the actors, can't remember his name, pointing at the TV like, oh, there it is. Yeah, well, that's what that is. That's definitely Israel going to do that. But that's Josh Hammer. That's the guy. I'm really exhausted if you can't tell. Hammer is heavily involved with legal initiatives at Turning Point USA Faith. Okay. Dinesh D'Souza, you know who D'Souza is. D'Souza is one of the most prominent guest speakers and documentarians for Turning Point USA University events. Starnes, that's Todd Starnes, is a TPUSA influencer, also very much like Elder and Gorka. And Laura Trump is not merely a speaker, she's one of the closest allies of both Erica Kirk and Turning Point USA. She is helping to support Erica Kirk as she goes on a tour and speaks with people like Barry Weiss. You know who Barry Weiss is? Barry Weiss is the woman that runs the programming at CBS now. She was installed by Larry Ellison, the billionaire Israeli, and she's also Jewish, and she also started her career out as an anti-Semitism czar, and now she runs most of CBS, and reportedly, even from people that are not about what we're about, they also are like, yeah, she's an idiot. Like she might be a retarded person. And she just is the talking head of introducing Erica Kirk and the editor-in-chief of CBS, Barry Wise. All right. Let's move on because there's a lot going on here, and please stay tuned and really focus because all this comes together. At some point we'll go to the chat, but there's so much to get to. I'm trying to focus as best as I can on all of these things. So I find it strange that the guy running the podcast, the radio shows for most of the Turning Point USA people is a Jewish agent. He's an Israeli agent, and he was the former campaign manager, or is the former campaign manager of President Trump. I mean, is that not suspicious a little bit? But more so, why was Charlie Kirk killed? Frankly, I don't think that he was killed by a furry who changed their clothes a bunch. I think that he was killed. If I'm going to state if I have to pick something, like I really don't know, but if I have to pick something, I'm going to say it was probably the lavalier mic, because that's what the Israelis do. They brag about pagers, and they gave Trump a golden pager, which is probably a threat that we're going to kill you if you don't do what we tell you to do. We're chosen, you're not. That's how it works. So they gave him a golden pager as a gift. Now, the Iranians gave Trump a gift, but you can't see that gift. You can't see it. But that's another story. So I'm pretty sure it was probably the lavalier mic that killed him. And I think much of the theories around Charlie Kirk are disinformation. I also know, I know that he was killed on a menorah, which is a Muslim symbol, as we all know. And I also know that the person asking him the question when he was not shot was a Jewish guy. And the guy, Zimmerman, who was yelling about how he shot him, was also Jewish. And the person that interfered with the little ceremony they had after Charlie had died, I'm pretty sure he was also Jewish. The guy that interrupted it and was mocking Charlie and all that, and pretty sure he was Jewish. And so was the owners of the plane that there was a controversy over a plane that had dropped off of radar, and and that plane was owned by the same people that are involved with Epstein and the same people, the Jewish billionaires that Charlie Kirk talked about. And this isn't a Charlie Kirk show, but you kind of get the idea. You know what's happening. You kind of get the idea. The theme here, the theme is that these are all Muslims and they're all terrorists. And so if you put all that together, like, why would Charlie be killed? It might have been because he had pointed out with his immense influence that we probably shouldn't go to war with Iran, and also because he pointed out that the Jewish billionaires are taking us there. Oh, okay. So they kill him. All right, they kill him. And then something real weird, even more weird than that, happened. On the 20th of March, something else happened. The 20th of March, Charlie Kirk's mentor was killed. Did you hear this? Did you read this? That image will also not come up on my screen for some reason. I mean, it comes up on my screen, but it won't come up on YouTube. So I'm not sure what the issue is there, but maybe that's just a coincidence. Anyway, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, maybe it's just a coincidence, but I'm having a hard time believing that's a coincidence. Let me try to add it again. Can we get it to come up? It won't add at all now. That's great. Alrighty. Well, you can only do so much, I suppose. You can only try. All right. Oh, I got it to come up now. All right, there it is. There's Charlie Kirk's mentor, Jeff Webb, dies in freak pickleball accident. A dear friend to Charlie. Oh no, he accidented. It was an accident. He was accidented, not assassinated. One of Charlie Kirk's early mentors has died in a freak accident, a pickleball accident. I forgot that was even a sport. I didn't know that you could die in it. Texas businessman Jeff Webb, described by Kirk's Turning Point USA as a visionary who helped shape generations of young leaders, died at the age of 76 on Friday, which would have been the 20th of March. And it's all from a head injury. And so that's how that happens. But here's where things get really interesting. I'm going to come a little bit closer to the camera because I'm getting I know what this is, but like I'm getting even more interested in it, even though I know what it is. On the same day, so just note that this article, this is March 23rd. If you look on the calendar, the 20th was the Friday that he actually died at the age of 76, which for anybody that wants to play with numbers, that is also 13, but that has nothing to do with this at all. Something else happened on the 20th. Something that you might have heard about, but you may not have made the connection. And, oh, that was strange. My preview photo displayer just shut off completely. Interesting. All right, well, I'll try to do what I can to get it back up so I can show you this stuff. See if it'll come back up fast. Or if I have to play with it. Nope. I don't think it's going to come back up, is it? Okay, it did come back up. There we go. Well, this also happened. So this was Charlie Kirk's mentor dying. And then here is something from the U.S. Army. And note the date of this U.S. Army. March 20th. What is this U.S. Army document I have here? Well, Regular Army and Reserve Components Enlistment Program. Interesting. Let's go down to the second page. The summary of change. The Army's changing their enlistment strategy and specifications. One of them includes increasing the maximum enlistment age up to and including age 42. Oh, so basically they just opened the door to include more Americans that otherwise would be prevented from getting into the military. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That seems like a weird thing to do in the middle of a war that has the potential to be global. Seems like a weird thing to do on the same day that Charlie Kirk's mentor is killed. You might think, what does that have to do with anything, Ryan? Well, I mean, if you're really paying attention, you'd realize that there's something strange happening here. You'd realize that Charlie Kirk died. Again, this is not a Charlie Kirk show, but Charlie Kirk died, and then his mentor died. And Charlie Kirk died, and his last words were not literally, but figuratively. And I mean, literally, these were his words, but they weren't the last thing he said. There's a video of the last thing he said. But some of the last things he said included Jewish billionaires embody all the stereotypes. He realized who was running Turning Point USA through their money and influence, Jewish billionaires. And then he died. And then his mentor died on the 20th of March this year. And the same day the Army changed their guidelines, their stipulations, their policies for the age of people joining the military. Okay. And I saved something very interesting on my phone. I'll try to show it to you. I don't know if it'll translate very well on the screen. I'm assuming it's still on my phone, but I found this interesting article, and if I can't find it here on my phone, I took a screenshot of it. Oh, there it is. Well, let me pull up the actual article and show it to you. Let me read you the headline. Israel says it will not join any U.S. ground operation in Iran. Oh, so Israel doesn't want to play. They don't want to go to Iran and play, but the U.S. is going to go. So okay. So we're going to go. We're going to have to do the fighting, I guess. That's interesting. Now, that's probably not coincidence, or maybe it is. I don't know what to believe anymore, right? I have no idea. But let me pull this article up so you can actually see it, because it sounds hard to believe. Charlie Kirk's mentor dies. I'm sure he probably knew what Charlie would say about, a war in Iran. And we know because we listened to what Charlie had to say about war in Iran. And why this is so important is because Turning Point USA is so unbelievably influential in getting young men to do one of two things. Not just bring them to God or conservative values or something, but to drive them into peace and let's have no war, or to drive them to war. Turning Point USA is a machine, and it was an anti-war machine, and it was a pro-free speech machine. And Jewish billionaires that wanted to go to war didn't like that, so they killed its leader, and then I'm guessing they probably killed his mentor. I doubt it was an accident. And then the army changes their guidelines. Let's get a lot of troops. We got to get more troops. Nobody wants to sign up. We're going to have to conscript people. Got to go to war with Iran. The Jews aren't going to do it. They've been so busy there in Iran. Maybe they're taking a break. They've been busy because they've been in Iran fomenting violence and murdering people, and in a couple of cases being arrested because the Mossad was undermining the regime and undermining Iranian society, like their civilization, their cities. They were undermining everything, and the Iranians arrested them. And oh my God, it's anti-Semitism. No, it's the Mossad. It's not anti-Semitism. That's a good book name. It's not anti-Semitism. It's the Mossad. And they tried to overthrow Iran's government. It's just truly stunning. Here's that story. I'll pull an image of that up for you as well, because you probably wouldn't believe it if you just heard me say it. It sounds like it's a made-up story. But I'll read you the headline, and then I will show you the image here. New York Times: Israel thought it could spur rebellion inside Iran. That hasn't happened. Oh, really? So Israel was involved in trying to overthrow the Iranian government. That's quite interesting. It's not new information to me, to many of you, but some people it might be. And once again, I mean, it's just like it's par for the course. But what are you going to do? There it is. So Israel's already been there doing this, but they're not going to send troops now. Don't worry, they're not going to send troops. Americans are going to be sent to die. That's okay. What, you don't like the war? You don't? Okay, so anyway, you kind of get the idea of what's happening here, right? There's a lot of weird things happening. And the timing of Charlie Kirk's mentor being accidented, that's my assessment. I think he was accidented. That's an opinion. I'll tell you that straight up. That's an opinion. But it's not an opinion that it was the same day that the Army changed their age of enlistment and forced conscriptions. At the time when Americans are like, yeah, I'm not fighting this war with Iran. Well, we're going to have to force you to. If we can't get younger people, we'll just expand the age. So then we'll get a bunch of men in their 40s, with their families to go die for Jews. So we'll just do that. And then Israel, same week, just is like, yeah, and we're not going to send our soldiers to die. It's your job to die, not ours. This really can't get any more blatant than it is, right? I mean, could it? Can it? I don't think it can get any more blatant than it is. But let me show you something here. I went to ChatGPT out of sheer curiosity because I showed you all of these things about Trump's former campaign manager and how now he works for Salem Media Group and he's a registered Israeli agent and so on and so forth. And I went to ChatGPT because I knew that those things were factual, and because I had the actual records. I have the FARA filing, the physical document. I can print it out. And I go to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, I said, ChatGPT, is there any connection between Brad Parscale and Israel? Is he an agent of Israel? Is he connected to Turning Point USA? Here's what ChatGPT told me. Short answer, no. Brad Parscale, a Salem Media Group, he is was the campaign manager for Donald Trump. That part's true. But no verified public record that he became chief strategy officer of Salem Media Group. Okay, well, I have it right here from Salem Media Group. So ChatGPT is wrong. You might say, well, they get things wrong. It's a learning language model or something. Yeah, but that's not even necessarily my full point. Let's take a look further into this. Registered as a foreign agent of Israel. There's no credible reporting. that he's registered under FAR. Really? Well, here's the actual FAR document. So these are really simple things on the surface too. Like these are easy to find. I found the FAR filing from I found it from The Hill. You can't get much more mainstream than these kinds of political publications. So ChatGPT can't pull that. Salem Media Town and Podcast Network. It talks about these conservative hosts that I named and claims about Turning Point USA. These are exaggerated or overgeneralized claims about these people like Sebastian and Brandon and Dinesh and Josh and Laura, among others. There's just like a loose association between them. Now, it's not just that ChatGPT tells you that. Even when you have like the record, like here's the record of him working for Salem and here's the record of him being registered under FAR as an Israeli agent. It's that ChatGPT is designed to do this. And who is it designed by? It's designed by the same people we're talking about. If you take the ChatGPT logo and you invert it and you place it over top of itself, do you know what kind of a symbol you get? You ever seen it? I'm sure some of you have seen it. Let me show you what kind of symbol you'll get. I'll pull it up here so you can see. Here is the ChatGPT logo. Let me pull that into our image folder. You can have a look for yourself. This is very peculiar and very interesting. For some reason, it's not loading again. Okay, there we go. Oh, what's that? That looks like ChatGPT's logo. And if you flip it, and then you just put it on top of itself, look at what symbol it makes. It's just basic geometry. Well, why doesn't it make a 5-pointed star? Why doesn't it make a pentagram? Because it was designed to look like this. This is the source of information. This is who's telling us there's no connection between the Jewish Brad Parscale and Trump and Turning Point USA. And there's no connection between any of these things. It just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? Hey, I'll show you something that's probably one of the most bizarre things that you could probably read right now. You confusing things that you could probably read right now about what's happening in Iran. You know, we're telling people, "Oh, the war is over," but you know, our planes can't be shot down, but they're being shot down. And it wasn't a war, but it is a war. Look at this search result. I had typed in, because I knew what I was looking for. I tried to type in. I was typing really fast. I typed Bob Starrate data center, and I meant to type bombing Stargate data center. And this is what you get. Now, this is from the India Today website, which means it's nothing. But there is a video of this on X. It might even be AI. I don't know. It doesn't. The point is the optics of this and the imagery that this is giving us, whether or not it's actually true. It doesn't even have to be true. It's the optics. And so this article says Iran threatens United Arab Emirates Stargate AI Center. Now, people are talking about Stargates like Carrie Cassidy, David Wilcock, and other con artists on the internet. They're like, it's Stargates. That's what the war is about. Well, it might be a Stargate, but it's not that kind of Stargate. It's more like the Stargate program. And that has to do with, Sam Altman and Larry Ellison and the people that run CBS and TikTok and all that. And this Stargate project and this specific site deals with NVIDIA, which is the evil eye. It deals with OpenAI, which is opening of an eye, and that's also ChatGPT associated, in Cisco and Oracle, which sees the future. That's Ellison's company. And then there's Japan's SoftBank involved in this as well. And Lieutenant Colonel Zulf Agarhi says in a video message from Iran, should the USA proceed with its threats concerning Iran's power plant facilities, the following retaliatory measures shall be promptly enacted. All power plants, energy infrastructure, and information and communication technology of the Zionist regime, as well as all similar companies within the region that have American shareholders, shall face complete and utter annihilation. Now, I wouldn't put too much money on that because the Iranians, I don't know, they're kind of like children too. They don't actually do anything. Or they're just being really restrained, which I suppose is potentially possible. But you look at that and it's okay, it's probably just a nonsense article. But there's a whole bunch of stories about how Iran is targeting Amazon data centers. Is it just because that's like I just like something to do with information and the internet? Is it just like an information war, or are they attacking these data centers because in in Islamic lore, in the end times, when Jesus returns and the Mahdi and him team up, they go to war against the Antichrist. And if you've grown up as a Christian or you've been around Christians, you'll know that a lot of Christians believe, they've probably conditioned themselves to believe, but it's also somewhat probably relevant and true, that the Antichrist, which I don't believe is a literal thing, it's a figurative, symbolic, metaphorical thing, but that the Antichrist that is being created is supercomputer AI. Where's that going to be at? It's going to be in Herzliya, Israel. It's going to be brought up in the temple, and that'll be their god, false god. And so I find it very strange that Iran is threatening data centers. Maybe that's the 21st century. That's what you do. But in eschatology, the Iranians, who are primarily Muslim, although there's a lot of Zoroastrians and Christians and Jews in Iran as well, but who cares, right? They would be, they've always been expected to be like the centerpiece of this global world war that brings in, the quote end times. Again, metaphoric, not literal, but they can make it literal with television and influencers. And so you have the optics of like they're bombing data centers. I feel like that's, I mean, yeah, it's a military target probably, and some you could argue that for sure, but it kind of strikes me as they believe that these data centers of all these companies that are almost exclusively Jewish, they called them Zionist. These data centers are the central hub of that. I mean, like this is the war that the Christians were being sexually aroused about in the 90s. This is like in the 2000s and probably before that. This is the war. This like the Muslims are going to go to war against the Antichrist. That's not the Christian perspective, but that's what the Muslims believe, and they're going to team up with the Christians to do it. Christians, however, are too busy getting. I'll choose my words very carefully because I'm kind of out of words. The Christians are too busy getting plowed by the Jews and the Israelis. So the Christians are too busy letting the Jews burn Jesus in feces and all that. So they're too busy with that to care about the Muslims. The Muslims are going to go ahead and they're going to attack the Antichrist, is what the optics of this are starting to look like. They're attacking data centers. Well, the U.S. says we're going to hit your water and your energy. They say, well, we'll hit your data centers. Okay, so I was just thinking, all right, so maybe there's something going on there. All right. And the more I thought about it, and the more I started seeing stuff about UFOs and the Artemis mission, and there's something supernatural going on here. And I don't think it has anything to do with Jesus or God. I think we're making it supernatural. We're finally, I think, because of the internet and because of the unbelievable availability of information, we're being exposed to so much that it's overriding, it's overwhelming the mind, and by extension, the body. I think that the general public is being driven insane, like schizophrenic. I don't mean that as a like a slur. I mean that literally, like schizophrenic, paranoid, delusional, like clinically, like mainline clinical diagnosis of those things. That's, I think, what's happening. And when we look further and further into all of these things, you start to see more and more connections. I honestly feel like, you know that feeling you get when you go on a trip and you get like a nice hotel and you stay in this hotel for a couple of days and you enjoy, your stay, and then you have to go home. You have to go back to work the next day or something. So you go home but it's like checking out of the hotel. You wake up in the morning and you get to enjoy the couple of hours before you have to check out, and then it hits you like, oh, it's over. I got to check out. I got to go home. It's kind of like that. I got that weird feeling. Or to use a sports analogy, I kind of got that feeling when you watch a sporting event, and you're watching your team. You don't have to be that fanatical about the sport, but you could be watching your team. You're hoping your team wins, and then at the end of the game, you have a few opportunities, and you can't capitalize. And you realize in the last 2 minutes, the chance every second that ticks off of the clock is just another chance that you're going to lose. And yeah, we're probably going to, oh, and we lost. Yeah, just that feeling that you get. That's kind of the feeling I have about all this. Honestly, I can't organize my thoughts. I can't get my thoughts straight because this stuff there's so much happening all at once that it's so overwhelming that I can't put it all together. It's not because I can't like put it together in an orderly fashion. It's because it just keeps changing. Like every day it keeps changing. Something new happens that changes the narrative every single day, that changes what we're seeing, what we're dealing with, whether it's something supernatural like I don't know, a bunch of blackbirds flying over Tel Aviv, or sewage pipes exploding and feces running all over the streets in Israel, stuff like that. Or it's stuff like with the Artemis mission and reverse speech, and it appears they're talking about grays, or the idea that the guy that running the whole mission is like is secretly a Jew who doesn't want you to know he's a Jew. Instead, they're focusing everybody's attention on blacks and women and Canadians. It's weird. It's also weird to put Canadians into the same. I don't know. I feel like I got a friend tonight, Teresa, in the chat. I see her here. I mean, you're Canadian, Teresa. Doesn't it feel a little bit weird to be included with like blacks? And Teresa's a woman, so like they're putting Canadians next to blacks. Like, oh, there's Canadians. Oh, there's women. We put them next to the blacks. Like, isn't all that like really offensive? And who's running it? A Jewish guy pretending to be a Christian, like all the other so-called influencers who were given the Epstein binders and then disappeared. There's something going on here. And I mean, I could show you the book that explains what's going on here, but if I show you the book, this show will probably get taken down off of line. It starts with an M and it ends and rhymes with Kampf. Chapter 2 to start. It explains all of this and how this goes down. And we're in such a dangerous position because now we're at the point where the clock, like the in those like TV shows or cartoons where the like kids are waiting to get out of class and the clock's ticking and it just gets slower and slower and slower, and then finally it gets right to the hour and it just stops. The kids are sitting there looking at it, and it stops. And then after like 15 seconds, it finally clicks over and the bell goes off. Like the bell just rang. Like it just clicked over. That's where we are. Like this is all very, very bad. This isn't like fear porn. This is all I don't know if people realize on average. I know listeners, you all understand this, but I don't think the average public understands this. And that's kind of the problem. Is the average person is the reason that all of this stuff is happening, is the issue. The general public is the reason for all of this. The general public is the issue as much or more so than all the agents and all the blackmail and all the compromise and all the payoffs and all the sex and all the drugs. The average person is responsible for this stuff. They're to, as quote our late friend Jordan Maxwell, all people care about is sports and beer. Make sure they have a beer and a TV. That's all they care about. This isn't true for the entire world. This is exceptionally true for America. And it's bizarre. I talked on a radio show the other day, and I put that interview with a bunch of other interviews I've done recently up in our archive, by the way, tstradio.info. But I went to I went on a couple of shows, and I forget exactly which show it was that I think it was Chris Matthews' show. I said to him, I said, the way that this stuff is unfolding and what's happening, with the information changing and information not even being made available. This is the 21st century. This is 2026. Like we literally know more about OnlyFans girls' like physical private anatomy than we do about what's going on in Iran. These random people on the internet. Like it's weird. We know weird things and then like important things we don't know. And what I said to this guy, my friend on this show, I said, I think what's happening is something similar to what happened during the Great Depression and then World War II. So during the Great Depression, people didn't really have anything, right? People lost their jobs, didn't have a lot of food. So people wanted an escape. And any spare change that they had often went to movies. People went to the movies. I learned that was one of the first things I learned in film school. I wouldn't have expected that because people need food, but people spent money on movies. Why? Because they wanted to escape reality. And then World War II started, and those same movie theaters became, your TV. You would go to the movie theater to watch newsreels. And those reels would be things that, of course, were shot and they were put together and they were shipped overseas from the theater of war. People go to theaters, sit down, and they would show what was happening. Now, you could excuse people in the 30s, the 40s, for not knowing exactly what was happening in Europe. You could excuse people for not knowing that after the war, there were disinformation campaigns that were like literal psych ops, literal dis and misinformation campaigns that were run out of facilities like Buchenwald and others that were run by Jews, literally Jewish agents and American military personnel. You could excuse Americans for not knowing that when they didn't have phones and computers and they didn't have the internet and they had to go to a theater to see what was happening. You could excuse them for being ignorant and being a little bit naive to what was going on. You can understand that. In 2026, there's no excuse. You have no excuse. There's no excuse that you don't have at least an idea of what's going on. Even if that idea of what's going on is, I don't really know, but I know that I'm being lied to. That should be the baseline. But in 2026, it's almost like we're back in the 30s again, where the average person has it's like we're waiting for reels to come in from Iran. We have no idea. We've seen people dancing on TikTok. Again, who owns that? Larry Ellison. Why did Larry Ellison buy it? There's too much anti-Israel content. There's too much pro-Muslim Arab content. There's too much people. There's too many people asking questions and saying Jews run the media. And so I'm a Jewish billionaire. I'm going to buy it. So I tell them they can't say that I own it. It's just crazy. It's nuts. It's nuts. All you've seen on from Iran is like TikTok videos for the most part. And there's just girls dancing half naked, telling you that they're so excited their country's being bombed. And you know what? At this point, I get it. I'm kind of cynical. And that girl one of the girls that was dancing, we played the video on the show. Turns out, I think it was her cousin or brother. Maybe it was a brother. Died in one of the bombings. Oh, oops, too bad. What are you going to do? He was probably an evil Muslim. So yeah, of course we had to kill him. He was going to blow up America. So you had to kill him. I think her brother died or somebody close to her died. But she was dancing. Yeah, bomb my country. And then they bombed her family and then oops. And then a lot of those other ones, there's one where the girl's dancing. She's got a boyfriend there and they're in front of the TV like, thank you, Trump, for bombing Iran. Thank you. Turns out she was a Jew and she was actually working, I'm pretty sure, with the Mossad. So, I mean, plus Iran didn't have internet, so I'm not sure how they were getting those things out. I mean, the military did, but I don't know if the civilians didn't have. I feel like if my country was being bombed, yeah, things go on as usual. But I feel like a young girl doesn't just like dress like a whore and dance in front of a camera and post it and be like, yeah, it's my war dance. That's just seen. But then again, maybe we are there at that point. And so you see those things, but you don't really see what's happening on the ground. Remember they broadcast the Iraq war? We got that on cable. I remember watching it when it started. But we can't see what's happening in Iran. We can see pictures of aircraft carriers with smoke and fire and billions in damage, but it wasn't a missile or a drone. I think that it was probably something else, photoshopped, which there were actual AI created videos of missiles hitting ships. And why do you think those were pushed? Because it discredited the fact that our aircraft carriers, they're unsinkable like the Titanic, were pummeled by Iranian missiles that we probably told soldiers going into a battlefield, don't worry. They don't even have missiles. They don't even have any kind of technology that could kill you. They don't even have guns. These are stupid Persian, Iranian Muslims. They're dumb. Just go to war. Don't worry about it. And then they go and they get hit. They're like, whoa, they've got like supersonic missiles. They've got all kinds. They're not even using their good stuff yet. And they're already taking out aircraft carriers. So you don't want to show that to the American public. So the president lies about that. Oh, they didn't hit it. No. So they didn't hit the aircraft carrier. The missiles can't reach it, but the missiles reached Diego Garcia because that makes sense. Like, it's just childish, ridiculous lies. It's almost like, when you watch like a crime drama or like a movie about like a murder or something like that, like a serial killer, right? And there's some kind of discussion at some point where it's just really obvious, like the person doing this wants to be caught. It's a game to them. They're brilliant. They're a psychopath. They're a murderer, but they want to get caught. It's part of the game. That's kind of what this is. It's like the president of the United States and the Congress, for the most part, and virtually all the media. These people clearly, I think, want to get caught. Like they want there to be a physical, violent uprising tonight. There has to be tonight, tomorrow, sometime. There has to be. That's what they want. In the same way that I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the Israeli government is pushing for, and not necessarily in let's say in Israel, but in the United States. They want that to happen in the United States. They want that uprising because you know what that uprising does? That uprising gives them the ability to enact all their censorship laws, employ Palantir, ban the Bible, among other things. I mean, we're already there with the Bible, but that's I feel like it's weird that there's a bunch of non-Christians holding the Bible and saying, hey, let's not ban this. And the Christians are like, no, it's okay. We can ban it because Genesis said I'm supposed to take care of Jews or something in another country. Plus, there's also a bunch of Jews in Iran and a bunch of Christians. Did you know that? Here, watch this. Watch this video. Remember we played Anthony Bourdain in Iran, in Tehran, and he gets there and he's like, this is really confusing. He actually said people were the nicest there of any country he's ever been to. And this guy spent, how many shows did he do in Tokyo and Okinawa? Because he loved Japan of all places. Like that was his favorite place to go, reportedly. Tokyo especially. Him and all of his chef friends wanted to die in Tokyo. It's the nicest people, best food, period. And he goes to Iran. He's like, these are the nicest people I ever met. And they're nothing at all like we were told. What? Here, watch this video.
That's who Iran wants to kill, is all the Jews.
Iran's intent to exterminate the Jewish people.
In the Islamic Republic of Iran, the second largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel.
We've been in Iran for 2,700 years.
This is Homayoun Sameya, Jewish Iranian MP.
Homayoun Sameya is the president of the Tehran Jewish Committee.
In Iran, we have complete freedom to carry out our religious duties.
There's a lot more religious diversity in this country than many people know about. For instance, in Isfahan alone, there are 13 synagogues.
Chair Behravan used to live in New York City. One thing he values in Iran, he says, is the absence of anti-Semitism.
I feel safer here than probably United States.
Sion Machgrefte is the head of Isfahan's Jewish community, and he says we consider ourselves Iranian Jews, not Israeli Jews.
I cannot live without Iranian culture.
Mossadegh is an elected member of Iran's parliament.
My decision about Israel based on the Iranian national interest. Everyone who is enemy of my country is enemy of me.
Well, that's kind of interesting. That doesn't really check out what I was told. Something different. I was told that they're just all Muslims. There's no Zoroastrians. There's no Christians. There's no Jews. Turns out they got one of the largest Jewish populations, if not the largest, outside of Israel and Manhattan. And they live in relative harmony, just like in Syria. You know, I talked to a girl from Syria. Someone knew my take on all of the war stuff when I was living in New York, and they said, well, I got a friend from Syria. She just moved here from Syria for school. You want to talk to her? And I said, yeah, sure. And I talked to her, and she said, yeah, we had a conversation. She's like, yeah, that's true. Syria has just a completely open policy for religion. you can be whatever you want. They protect Christians. They protect Jews. I said, you see how that's kind of a contradictory thing to what we're told as Americans? She's like, yeah, but your country's run by Jews. It's like, oh, so like the Syrians know that, the Saudi Arabians, and they're run by Jews too. And it seems like everybody knows that. So it's interesting that Iran has a bunch of Jews that are actually, they're not even necessarily, these are government officials that aren't even necessarily supportive of Israel. They're supportive of Iran. Now, that would mean that they're probably in need of being liberated. So we'll kill the Christians, we'll kill the Persians in general, we'll just kill everybody. And we'll kill the Jews there too, is apparently. Listen to that. Ted Cruz, the goblin, says that Iran wants to kill all the Jews. Yet Israel is, if you took Israel out of the equation, Iran would have the most Jews in the region. How's that work? If they wanted to kill all the Jews, why would there be Jewish officials or Jewish anybody in Iran? Wouldn't they kill them all? Or Christians, for that matter. Wouldn't they kill all the Christians? That doesn't make any sense at all. But it's weird because when Ted Cruz, the goblin, Lord of the Rings character, says that, he's like, we got to stop them. So in order to stop Iran from killing Jews, which they're not doing, we're just going to bomb them and kill a bunch of Jews and a bunch of Christians and a bunch of Zoroastrians and a bunch of Muslims and a bunch of everybody else by carpet bombing civilian areas. Isn't that interesting? It's an inversion of reality. If you're having trouble figuring out what's going on here, it's an inversion of reality. And that's what all of this is about. It's an inversion. I mean, these people are the face of evil. That's probably why just a few days ago, and we did a show on this, Tel Aviv was swarmed by a large number of black birds, crows that flew across the city. Not a normal thing that happens. You can see the video here. They're flying left to right. That's enough of that. You get the idea. Now, to the Romans, if you were on a battlefield and you saw blackbirds, crows, and they flew left to right, that was an omen that you better not advance any further. The gods have spoken and said, you're going to be destroyed. You're not going to win. So the Romans would say, all right, I'm out. And they would back off. That's what the Romans believed. The Irish believe that when you see a large flock of birds like this, that it is the goddess of war. The Native Americans believe that it is a divine portent and that something is going to change. Something is going to be divinely changing, like something that is part of the natural order of things. There's going to be a shift. I did a show on this recently called The Croman, if you want to go back and listen to it. Speaking of omens, here's another one, another portent. This is part of, I believe this is somewhere in Tel Aviv. This is one of many. Remember years ago, maybe you don't, because it all started on 2023, October 7th, and all the history before that got erased. But I remember like 20 years ago when you would see how the Israelis would literally spray sewage in Gaza. Like they would go down the street with a tank of poop, and they would spray it on people. That was real. I saw the videos of it before AI. Well, now there's a bunch of sewage leaks in Tel Aviv, apparently, reportedly. That's a lot of sewage. At least that's what they say it is. That's what's going around the internet. And if that's true, I mean, that's got to be an omen too, because here is Gittin 57a of the Talmud. And when they say it doesn't exist, but then I can pull it up from memory and I can read it to you. And they talk about how Jesus burns in feces. I mean, it kind of sounds like maybe Jesus is real. And maybe Jesus is going to come back and beat the hell out of these people, flip some tables over. Gittin 57a. Onkelos went, raised Jesus the Nazarene from the grave through necromancy. He asked, what about the Jewish people? Should I attach myself to them? Jesus said, The welfare you shall seek, their misfortune you shall not. For anyone who touches them is regarded as if he were touching the apple of his eye. Onkelos said, what is the punishment of that man? A euphemism for Jesus himself. In the next world, Jesus said to him, he is punished with boiling excrement. So I don't know if this excrement is boiling, but it might be another bad omen. You got crows flying over your city. You got feces in the street. I mean, sounds like God's pretty pissed, but maybe it's just my imagination. Speaking of God, here is God himself, the president of the United States, according to himself and according to his spiritual advisor and according to several pastors. Let me scroll down here and play some of these videos for you. This is a crazy person. This is a Christian nationalist, Lance Wallnau, declaring that Trump is basically a prophet. Let's listen to that.
And with Trump there, which is one of those rare moments in Earth history where you have someone who's not a politician, you almost got a prophet in office. They said to him yesterday, he's hilarious. They said to him, when will this war of Iran be done? He goes, I'll know. Well, when will you know? Or what evidence are you looking for? I'll feel it in my bones. Folks, that's not even normal. This is why that's why his enemies are freaking out. Trump's going to feel it in his bones. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, he's basically a prophet. Here is the White House spiritual advisor who advises you to donate 10% of your money to Israel. Literally. I don't know if you read that. She is encouraging Americans to donate 10% of their income. You know, your bills are expensive, can't afford food, but Jews need more money because look, there was the Holocaust or something happened. So you got to give them your money. Well, you're not an anti-Semite, are you? You want this government assistance because your city was hit by a hurricane? You're going to have to sign this pledge that you're not going to boycott Israel. In Texas and all over the country, towns in Texas that tell the governor, yeah, we're not sending tax money to Israel. The tax money should go for our roads. And the governor says, you can't do that. It's against the law to not send your tax money to Israel. Well, here is that spiritual advisor. You know, the one who's dancing on stage. When I walk on holy ground, it's holy ground. If I walk on the White House, it's holy ground. And because the Iranians are the religious freaks, right?
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you.
Does this not scare the Talmud out of you? I don't believe any of this stuff is literal. But I do believe that these people believe it's literal. And I do believe that these people are going to do something. I mean, they've already started the war with Iran, but they're going to do something worse. Look at this. Comparing the president to prophets, comparing the president to Jesus. This is really, really sick. These people are out of their minds. And honestly, I'm at a point now where since I don't really care either way, like the Super Bowl, I don't care who wins. I mean, if the optics, the narrative that they always try to spin is China, it's going to be a war with China. Like if China invaded the United States, it's not going to happen. But if China invaded the United States and just wiped out our leadership and said they're religious zealots, they're going to get everybody in the world killed, and we did this to save you, I'd be like, well, I don't really trust China, but yeah, I think they're right about that. We need regime change in the United States. We need regime change in Israel, or these people are they're going to detonate really big bombs, literally and figuratively. I mean, the president literally said they're going to hit oil. They're going to hit energy in general. They're going to hit desalination. They've hit schools, hospitals. They're planning to murder 92 million people in Iran. But since they're not technically people, because they're not Jews, doesn't count, right? That's what they're saying. That's not me saying that. You've heard stuff like this on this show for years, but now it's there. It's right there. It's right there. I got to be careful how I put my hands up to the camera. Oh, he's doing an Illuminati symbol. What, you mean geometry? I mean, how much more of this is the public going to take? Can we just get it over with? You know, when you're waiting to have some kind, like I had a tooth removed one time, and the worst part was really waiting for the tooth to get removed. It's like, can I just get it over with? I just do it now, even if like if I had the option right now, no painkiller, tomorrow painkiller, just do it right now. I want it done with. I just want that. Just let's get it done with. Okay, let's just get it done with. All right. Drop the nuke on Tehran and Isfahan, destroy all the heritage, all the history, all the human civilization. And then, like Netanyahu says, then we're going to bomb Turkey. Then we're going to just basically expand the Israeli empire across the whole Middle East. We'll establish that as the base of operations. We'll suck the rest of the wealth out of the United States. And then we'll set up the Antichrist system and run the world. And any country who doesn't agree, they're going to get the Samson option. That's basically what the situation is now that we find ourselves in. I mean, this is nuts. I told you, how many years ago? 4, 5, 6 years ago? I said, you wait until the conservatives get back in office. This whole atheistic, transgender, left-leaning, abortion, open border nonsense, everything's racist nonsense, is going to swing so far to the right that they're now going to call the president Jesus Christ. And oh boy, there we are. But if you say that to Christians on average, well, you don't like Jesus. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it kind of blasphemous to call the president Jesus? Isn't it kind of blasphemous to let a foreign country that has nothing to do with Israel and the Bible work through your government to ban the Bible? Why are non-Christians some of the only people that are speaking up about this? I'm not a genius. I barely passed high school. Like, I could show you my grades in high school. It was like A history class. I barely passed high school. I am not a smart person. I just push myself, overwhelm myself, and then eventually, things stick in my head. I'm not a smart person. How did I know this 6, 7 years ago? 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I have no formal education. How did I know this? Because I read books. I read the Bible. I read the Quran. How did I know? I listened to what they say. It's just there. I thought about that the other day. And even before the show tonight, I was thinking, I say that kind of thing often, and it probably sounds like I'm being arrogant. I'm saying it so I don't sound arrogant, but and yes, in the chat, I see someone said, because you can read. That's right. That's why I know I'm literate. That's the reason. But I think the reason that I can be right about so many of these things is not because I'm smart or even that I can read. You know what I think it is? I think it's that every time we're sold something, I don't care what it is. It's a mass shooting, or it's a war, or it's some kind of political scandal, or whatever we're being sold. Whatever the thing is that I'm supposed to take my attention away from things that matter and put my attention on and argue with other people that disagree. Whatever that thing is we're being sold. If you believe that thing, or you believe the total opposite, you're always going to be wrong. And what I've noticed is, if you just don't believe the story, but you also don't believe the opposite. Like, for example, you don't believe that COVID-19 is some big threat. And you look at the PCR tests and the amplification of genetic material. And you know about mask history and how the particles are smaller than the mask, and it's all use, it's all theater, it's a talisman, like the New England Journal of Medicine said. But you know all that. Okay. But the opposite of that is, the just accept whatever you're told and wear 5 masks or 6 masks and, take 15 different injections. And so those are the two kind, they seem like extremes, but they're not really extremes. The first one described as the middle. The opposite of let's just do whatever we're told, wear 5 masks and take 16 inoculations. The opposite of that is I'm not washing my hands because the CDC said so. That's the opposite extreme. And if you just stand in the middle, you're always right. Always. Because both sides are always wrong. And there's no other option. The left is wrong. And I don't mean that politically. The right is wrong. And I don't mean that politically. They're both wrong. So if you just stand in the middle, it'll all just kind of come back to you. That's it. That's how you can be right all the time. It's not about being right, but that's how you can. I sit back, I'm like, how the hell did I know that? I don't understand how I knew that. Listeners of this show can equally be correct about things. I don't understand. It's probably because you just don't buy into anything. So you're not subject to, the emotional aspect of it. And a lot of it speaks for itself. Here's more. This is Jesus. We have a recording of Jesus speaking here. This is more Mr. Jesus. This is from the same speech that you just heard Paula White.
On Palm Sunday, Jesus entered Jerusalem as crowds welcomed him with praise, honoring him as king. They call me king now. Do you believe it? No king.
Yeah, he's a king too. So he's a king. He's Jesus. I mean, this is insane. Isn't this the kind of thing that the liberals talked about? Let me guess. It's just trolling, right? Sure, they're just trolling you. Just trolling you. Well, speaking of trolls, this is one of the most fun ones to listen to. Let's listen to Stephen Greer. Might sound like an abrupt shift of the topic, but trust me, it's not. Let's listen to Stephen Greer here.
The big one would be this, what Werner von Braun warned about on his deathbed. He said,
actually, before I play this, let me reload the page because I know it's going to cut out and not play the whole thing. Werner von Braun, here we go. Werner von Braun said the alien card. Let's see how incorrectly he gets this.
The big one would be this, what Werner von Braun warned about on his deathbed. He said, he said, we are going to hoax an alien attack on the planet.
Nope, that's not what he said. Stephen Greer is such a lying piece of trash. Werner von Braun did not say we're going to fake an alien attack on the planet. He said the last card will be the alien card, and it's all going to be fake. There's a much... you know how much of a difference there is between those two things? Write them down if you're having trouble, picturing it in your mind. They're going to fake an alien invasion, or the alien card is the last card and it won't be real. There's a big difference between those two things, but Stephen Greer doesn't apparently understand that.
It's all a lie, but it will trick and fool almost everyone. So we're trying to expose that. But see, if this festers much longer with that group that have the technologies I'm talking about, in a minute, they could stage this and it would fool. Well, I mean, look at what they've been doing for decades, fooling everyone. Everyone's saying, oh, those are alien events. And, our military guys chasing these objects thinks those are military, right? Well, they're not. I mean, or alien, they're military or covert aerospace programs. So the ability to hoax an attack on our planet is real. And
what would be the goal in them doing that, staging a really false alien attack on the entire world? What would they accomplish?
They want to unite the world around a military junta, a totalitarian system. And how do you do that? How do you get one race or one ethnicity or one nation to stop fighting with each other? You create a bigger problem up there, and it unites everyone against a common enemy. But in that uniting of the world in war instead of peace, they can then exert all manner of totalitarian controls. That has been a 70-year plan. I have a CIA document from 1953 or 54 stating that they can use the UFO issue to great advantage for its, quote, psychological warfare value. So once they got close and mastered the technology in the mid-50s, and they knew they were close to that in 53, 54, then what has happened is that they've started a long-term program to brainwash the public that there's a threat out there. Now, the question is, will they brainwash President Trump and other people? We're providing the information we have, but there are some
yeah, we get it. You're briefing the president like an 8th grader sending documents to the White House. Mr. President, can you read my letter? Which is actually what he admitted to doing. He just sent a letter to the White House. I mean, it's so stupid. Like, I could send an email to the White House. Folks, I've been briefing the president. It's again, childish nonsense. But Stephen Greer is talking about something that has an essence of it, to it. I don't know, like, how, saffron. You ever seen saffron? Saffron is very, very expensive, and you get almost none when you buy it. It's like $20, $30 a bottle, and you have to get a microscope to see where the saffron is in the little container. Not so much in Iran. They have a lot of saffron there. I learned in the Anthony Bourdain show that apparently is blocked on YouTube in the U.S. because people don't want you to see what Tehran's really like. There are some documentaries that are not blocked though. But it's like saffron. It's really expensive. It's really small, but there's essence there, and that's kind of what Stephen Greer is talking about. There is something to this. It's like there's something to the idea that I don't trust what NASA shows me, so that must mean the Earth's flat. Like, that's a big jump. In the same way that it's kind of a big jump to say the alien card that Carol Rosen talked about is the plan to hoax an alien invasion. That's not what she said. That's not what Eric von Braun said. So there's a difference between those two things. But there's something in it that there's an essence here that is relevant. And the relevancy, I think, gets amplified because we're looking at, on a number of different fronts, a lot of things unfolding at once. And obviously, every day, every month, every year, every decade, there's always a bunch of stuff happening in the world, obviously. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a lot of really intimately connected things and really, really big ones that are groundbreaking and earth-shattering. Like, for example, going to the moon for the first time in 2026, according to Wiseman, who is the commander of the crew. I thought we went in 1969. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but he said it.
It might land wrong, but I'm going to try anyway. This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit.
All right. So when that's happening, simultaneously, when we're talking about disclosure, and by disclosure, UFOs obviously are real, but whatever people think disclosure is, everybody has their own version of it. What he just said, mixed with disclosure and the disclosure president and aliens being real, and then mixing that with the idea that it was never about fake aliens, it was about a fake threat, which is what the government has repeatedly acknowledged. It's that there's a threat because we don't know what it is. So a fake threat, telling people that maybe there's more to it than that, not giving anybody any details, whether you know them or not, but just it's like there's like a threat. Which I mean, did you hear Burchett? Burchett had said that if the American public knew what was happening with these things, they'd have nightmares. They wouldn't be able to sleep. It's that horrible. And we can't show you what it is, but it's so horrible. It's so awful that you won't be able to sleep at night. And I'll find that clip and play it for you too. That factors in, that plays into this idea of the fake alien invasion, which isn't a fake alien invasion. It's a fake threat. Fake threat. The fake threat is not actually telling the public anything. And then, with all the CIA, Pentagon, military disinformation, which has been ongoing for, since what, 1953? You factor all that in, and then here's Tim Burchett on some news show saying that if the public really knew what was going on, they'd keep them up at night.
Congressman, but I'm wondering, kind of how you react to that, because you are connected. You're on the UFO subcommittee. I'm just wondering what you make of that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much on what Matt said. But I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that tongue?
I'm being 100% serious. Okay. I've been 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this, if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up, you'd be up at night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. We just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it.
You'd be up at night thinking about it. You'd be really worried about it, which, kind of sounds like that new movie that's coming out called Disclosure Day, which happens to be like a weird mixture of UFOs and also demonic possession. And then you have people like J.D. Vance reinforcing, and David Farr in his documentary as well, Age of Disclosure, which was just a bunch of UFO grifters selling the same stories to a new audience. Then you have J.D. Vance talking about demons and UFOs, bringing the two things together. This can all just be wiped away, in your opinion, or there's something else going on here? I'm pretty sure that it's the latter. Let's take a listen to J.D. Vance.
UFO files, and then you start getting really busy worrying about the economy and national security and things like that. But I've still got 3 more years as vice president. I will get to the bottom of the UFO files.
Okay. Have you peeked? Have you done a peek?
Have I what?
Have you done a peek? Have you
So I actually haven't. I have
full
not.
Independence Day.
I have. I have not been
He's such a fake piece of trash.
able to spend enough time on this to really understand it. Yeah. But
Let me just make it clear. This is not an American, okay? This is someone pretending to be an American. This is someone LARPing. This is someone pretending to be a, quote, patriot. Because at some point, our enemies realize that if you just put on an American flag and you put your hair back and put on eyeliner and a tie, that the American public embraces you as one of them. We don't.
I am going to. Trust me. I'm obsessed with this. I've already had a couple of times where I'm like, all right, we're going to Area 51. We're going out to New Mexico. We're going to sort of get to the bottom of this. And then the timing of the trip just didn't work out. But trust me, anybody who's curious about this, I'm more curious than anybody. And I've got 3 years of the very, very tippy top.
He's bi-curious.
Of the classification. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
He's going to get to the bottom. I told you he's bi.
You haven't been to Area 51 yet.
Not yet.
There's another Fed there. There's another. Look at this. Look at this.
More
this
curious
loser.
than anybody. And I've got 3 years of the very, very tippy top of the classification. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay. So you haven't been to Area 51 yet.
Not yet.
Some
Not
people
yet.
say they keep the UFOs in Ohio. They might,
yeah, Hangar 18.
Pentagon talking points.
But I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet.
Okay. All right. Well, we're waiting for it. We saw aliens.
You know me.
He hasn't looked into it. He has no idea.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway.
Oh, he doesn't have any idea, but he thinks they're demons.
Well, but I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet.
Okay. All right. Well, we're waiting for it. We saw aliens.
And you know me.
We saw aliens.gov.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but
I have no idea what's going on, but I'm pretty sure that they're demons. Interesting. So all of that coming together. And then there's more, including missing scientists and military personnel. And, I mentioned Disclosure Day and like alien demon possession. And let's take a look at this other story about these missing scientists. You remember this? We did a show on this, these missing scientists. Now they're going back to 2024 to find more so-called scientists or researchers or whatever term they apply to them. People have various different titles. We'll call them scientists, but different missing people. Here's another one that supposedly went missing suddenly, but it happened 2 years ago. Frank Mywald, 2024 July, died at the age of, or missing rather, at the age of 61. I guess he says, I thought he disappeared. I guess he died. The details of the death never were made public. Suddenly, after 2 years, we're talking about this guy. He worked for JPL, worked for NASA on space missions to detect signals of life. And then another one, another person, Anthony Chavez, a former employee at LANL until his retirement in 2017. He vanished without a trace. In 2025, just 7 weeks before a key assistant at the same lab disappeared. Yeah, it's really, really suspicious. Let me take you to the show that we did on this because I have a list of the other people who disappeared. And we did this on last Friday's show, Skunk Doesn't Works, UFO Murders and Fallen Angels. Here are the other people: Monica Reza, Melissa Casius, Nuno Lareiro, Carl Grillmer, William Neil McCaslin, which is the Air Force Major General, and Reza Pahlavi. So There's 8 people that they've now put onto a list, and most of these people are connected to nuclear technology or things dealing with the search for near-Earth objects or aliens or we'll see, life. This is all really, really weird. And it might be because that's how the scripted narrative is written. Could be part of it. But when you got these people disappearing, they're all connected to like, okay, so near-Earth objects and searches for life on other planets, but specifically nuclear stuff. And then you have the president, and I've played this for you before, the president talking about how there is a bunker being installed under the White House, a new one, a fresh one under the ballroom. He said this on Air Force One, told the reporters the following, if the clip actually plays.
As they are going to be made, they're going to be hand carved and they're beautiful. Top of the line, they'll be Corinthian, which is considered the best, most beautiful by far. Okay? What's your timeline on this? Timeline, so we're ahead of schedule and
I love how we just do like memes in real life. Now we just hold up pictures and it's
under budget. And all of this money, all of the money paid are paid by myself and donors, and it's all donors. There's not one dime of government money going into the ballroom.
Really, this is the equivalent of David Wilcock holding up a 3D printed model. Except I guess they're going to actually build the ballroom. They are building it, but it's like the communication style is equal.
Military is building a big complex under the ballroom.
Oh, what's that?
Government money going into the ballroom. Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that the
military is building a giant complex under the ballroom. And then the president, with a grainy photo, appears to be pressing the red button. I don't know if you've seen this. If I can find the actual grainy photo again on the computer. I think actually the White House took some of these things. Maybe they took some of these things down. The White House did remove a couple of things that I had looked for. There was actually a story in the news about that as well. Yeah, I don't even see that original photograph that I had. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, but the president was pushing what looked like a red button, but it was really super blurry photograph. When all of that's happening, while you have a bunch of nuclear scientists that go missing, there's a lot happening here. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening. We got missions to the moon, named after Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. We have reverse speech referencing grays. We have war with Iran. We have threats of nuclear weapons. We have nuclear scientists going missing and near-Earth object observers and people searching for new life in the universe. And we have, disclosure's also coming. It's coming soon. And I don't mean the movie, but I do mean the movie, but I also mean, real life. And that would be, they keep saying sometime this summer. Disclosure of aliens or UFOs. And then there's Disclosure Day about possession from aliens. And then there's the vice president who said that he thinks that they're demons. And then there's a bunch of omens in Israel, crows and sewage. And there's also the Charlie Kirk stuff where they killed his mentor on the same day that the Army changed the age for enlistment for conscription, which of course you would need to do to get more people into the military to go fight this war. Remember years ago when I told you on this show that here's kind of how it happened. I read a bunch of books on history, and then I realized, what I read in those books is exactly what's happening right now. So history does really rhyme and repeat itself. And I said, we're approaching a period of time in which what's going to happen is the pendulum's going to swing the other direction hard, like total religious fanatical radicalism. Let's start a war to the other side. And what's going to happen beyond the war is, well, there's going to be a series of shifts in society that happen. And we're going to go from the conservative people that are like, you can't take my speech away. You can't take my guns away, to what, I can protect Jews if I give up free speech. Honey, we can protect Jews if we don't say what we think anymore. So yeah, that's okay. You can take that away. Oh, and you want the guns too? Hey, if we give our guns up, the Jews are protected. Yeah, we'll give our guns up. That's fine. Anything else? Oh, yeah, you can come in our house and search it in case we were anti-Semitic. That would be fine. Like when I said all that stuff was going to happen, and now all that stuff's happening. And it's not because I'm smart. It's just, again, because that's what's happening. It's like looking outside and, look, the sun, it's out today. You can see it. There's no clouds. Wow, you're really smart. Nope. It's just right there. The president is literally comparing himself to Christ. Literally, the White House spiritual advisor who was doing 10% donations to Israel, and also, what was it? If you donate $1,000, you get 7 blessings, and she takes them out of the Bible too. You get the blessings from the Bible. That you could just hold the Bible and you could read it, and that would give you the blessings. But she's holding the blessings hostage for $1,000. That was her Black Friday sale, essentially, which was about as dumb as Stavati Aerospace selling rocket launchers for Black Friday. Literally, the White House spiritual advisor did that. And then Mary Madelson calling Trump the savior, the Messiah. He's going to save the Jews. And then they give him the Jerusalem crown, and then the Israel Award, and then a special menorah for his home. And then and the list just goes on and on and on. And then there's rabbis calling him the Moshiach and comparing his name in Gematria to that of Jesus Christ or King David. And it's okay. There's a script. And when I say script, I don't mean it's all fake. I mean it's fake in the sense that it's not happening by the will of your God. It's all being scripted to make it appear as such, to convince you that this stuff is real, literally, and you should support it. Support Israel and support the war. And if you don't do those things, then you're just a bad person. I'll tell you what, it's all coming out now. It's all coming out. You want to see something really interesting before we cap off the show tonight? Let me show you something really interesting. Here it is. I got the actual article, the actual document. This is from Andrology, published March 31st, 2020. Was it 5? And this just made it into the news, I believe it's today. Male G-spot revealed. And if you guessed it's in the butt, you're wrong. You might think, well, that's a weird thing to bring up, Ryan. Stay with me for a second. You know how 62% of Americans are Christian, and a percentage are Muslim, and nearly 90% of the country is circumcised? You know how circumcision is, especially for Christians, but it's a covenant with God, and it's it's about cleanliness. You can't wash your balls. So all those things about circumcision, we got to get them circumcised. Okay. Well, the people that sold us circumcision told us that how do I say this without sounding like really vulgar? They told us that the male G-spot is in your ass. So if you want to stimulate it, you're going to have someone massage the prostate. Stick your fingers up your ass, get a butt plug, which we could call, homosexual onboarding. But it turns out that the male G-spot is actually somewhere else. You want to guess where it is? The male G-spot is in this area. Here's the actual study. It's in this area that was covered by the foreskin that the Jews convinced you to chop off. All right, we'll get that off the screen. So in other words, let's put it this way. You were told to chop off part of the penis that is the G spot. And for people leaving the show because they find this, they're like, "Oh, the show's not over. Hold on a second." But the idea that we got to remove this part of the penis. Okay, the same people that told you that the real G spot is in the butt. So they convinced you that you should stick things up your ass and you should chop parts of the penis off. Who would those people be again? The same Jews that are responsible for all the other things we talked about tonight? And then we learned that everything's coming to light. And you know what happens when you off with the head? It makes men more aggressive, less sexually satisfied. It creates a much more aggressive society. And it creates, in terms of like emotions and people getting angry, it also creates kind of an apathetic one too. It's like a dog when you chop its balls off. Maybe that's why things are the way that they are. Maybe that's why we're happy to sleepwalk into a war. Because we're traumatized from the time we're born. Just chop it off. Don't worry, the real G spot's up your ass. And of course, just like Rabbi Shmuley, I mean, nothing with these people is anything but sexual perversion. So you got a mission to the moon. You got reversals of grays. You got war with Iran. You got nuclear scientists missing. You got people that are missing that are connected to NEOs. You got people that are missing connected to life on other planets. You got disclosure supposedly going to be announced, whatever that's going to be. You've got Disclosure Day coming out. You've got J.D. Vance saying they're demons. You got Disclosure Day saying, well, they're basically demons that possess you. And you've got Charlie Kirk's mentor being killed on the same day. Well, he died in an accident playing pickleball. The same day that the Army changes the recruitment / conscription age so that they can get more people to fight in this war against Israel. And the person that used to be Trump's campaign manager happens to now manage all of the radio and podcast people that are pushing the same Israeli talking points Laura Loomer pushes, and are the same ones working with Turning Point USA, which is a giant organization that could either have been used to drive people to have families and children and make society a better place, which is what Charlie is misguided on some things as he was in regard to Israel. He learned his lesson. You get your head blown off or your neck cut open. But as misguided as he was on that, until the very end, he realized it and he changed his way. So God bless Charlie Kirk. And they killed him to get control of his organization. And then they got control of his organization, and now kids aren't going to be led to having, families and kids and make a better society. And let's not have war with Iran, as Charlie said. Now they're going to be led into like those images of kids being put into a meat grinder in school. They're going to just be put in that meat grinder. And yes, it has a Star of David on it. And they're going to grind them up. Well, they probably grind them like this. They're going to grind them up like this. And they're going to sprinkle them all over the Middle East, all over the world, eventually, if they get their way. One after another, the dominoes fall, one after another. Let's kill 92 million Iranians. Let's move on. It's like that meme where someone's knocking on the door and then the blood trail comes out and they murder whoever's in the room. They always put a Muslim in there. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to put a rabbi in there. Rabbi's going door to door, knock, 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 Iraq, knock, 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 Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Lebanon, Somalia. Remember, Somalia actually has like a Somaliland, and they got some like weird Jewish settlement going on there now, just like in Ukraine. The coked up homosexual quote president of Ukraine actor, and now they're knocking on Iran. Knock, knock, knock. We'll go in here. No problem. They don't even have missiles, and then planes get shot down, aircraft carriers get damaged severely, and it just shows. It's like leaving a hotel after a nice vacation. You're like, I really don't want to go, but I guess I got to go home. It's that weird feeling of like, well, it was nice, but it's over. This indicates that the U.S. is no longer the world superpower. We no longer have a coherent or a functioning society. We are another brick in the wall, as Bubba says in the chat. And I want to go back to the chat for the remainder of the show. All of this stuff is intimately connected, as you can probably see from my description, including the whole Christ is King mantra and the rededication of the United States to God, God. This is all connected. And as Fluck said, we were all fooled. Very, very fooled. Very, 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 very fooled. As I said, I know people have been speaking in the chat throughout the whole show. Thank you for letting me get through the presentation. And ultimately, we end and go through these comments in the chat, preparing for the end. Jesus returns, aliens invade, and life just kind of goes on because it's all just, it's none of it's organic, none of it's real. It's a giant joke. Of course, Easter's coming real soon. Real soon. And Christians get more upset for talking about the origin of Easter as having nothing to do with Jesus than they do about Easter prayers being shut down or churches being bombed in Israel. That's why I'm really pissed at Christians. I don't hate Christians. I hate that you are participating in this and you're responsible for this at a disproportionate rate to the rest of the population who are just in it for the beer and the football. The Christians are responsible because they apparently just have no idea what they actually believe and they're just fooled from birth. It's sick. It's sick. Of course, not everybody. Play of the clips. There's a bunch of Jews in Iran that are like, hey, we just want to protect the country that we live in, and we're not concerned with anything else. And, well, they get killed too because they're not good. They're not good. Teresa says, and the hockey. As much as I love hockey, it's really hard for me to watch anything nowadays. Like I still have a hockey streaming subscription, but it's hard to sit down and watch it. I'm just like, it's good for you to probably take your mind off of things, but at the same time, I'm like, there's something else. There's got to be something else I can do. All right, let's go to the chat. Severe clear, but they're the chosen people. Yeah, they're the chosen people, so they can kill whoever. The 92 million Iranians, F them. Who cares? Who cares? Noka says they are against people being people, and that probably speaks to the whole system. Patriot Girl, yes, the Zionists have been planning this for years. Christians and the Jews and Muslims too, for that matter. It's always fun to check in on other countries that don't have any of these people really living in them. It's always fun to check in on Japan, maybe not what the government's doing, but what the people think. And I was talking to my wife about this the other night, and she's like, well, what's going on with the war stuff? And I told her, and she's like, I don't understand. And I said, well, even if we spoke each other's languages respectively perfectly, like 100%, I still couldn't explain it to you. I speak professionally, and I can't explain it. I don't know. I have no idea how to explain it. I tried to explain to her, like, the metaphoric aspect of it and the Jesus thing, and like, what I came up with? We went out to have sushi and kind of celebrate me being done with all my books and whatnot. And I said, I thought of a comparison. I said, well, like Amaterasu, the sun goddess, is the chief goddess in Shinto. I said, basically what these people believe is that if they start a world war and murder millions of people and specifically target children, like kill as many kids as possible, but then kill everybody in the end, that Amaterasu will save them and they will then rule the world, and Amaterasu will sit next to them and like run the world. She's like, that's I forget the word she used. It wasn't crazy, but she's like, doesn't make any sense. I said, well, no, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what they believe. Really? Yeah, that's what they believe. They're insane. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to put just because we've got the chat room going tonight, I'm going to put the call-in link in the chat room. So you can call into the show tonight and give me your opinion on what I've discussed, and correct me if I'm wrong or add things that I might have missed. Let me stick that in there right now. The chat, tstradio.info is the website. rdgable@yahoo.com is the email. Please buy me a coffee. Please leave a review on Apple. And please get a copy of one of my new books. If you don't like the ads, which, I don't either, it supports the show. It keeps us on air. And you can subscribe to the ad-free show if you want to get the ad-free version. That's how it goes. I don't get paid $7,000 a sentence. I don't get money from some corporation or for some group. If you want to call into the show, though, I've just placed the link into the chat. And I will also, can I make that? Yeah, put that at the top. All right, I'll post it in there a couple of times, and I'll give you a few minutes to click on it. So basically, if you click the link, you don't have to have any application. You click the link in the chat, and it'll bring you into probably whatever browser you have. And then you just click. I think it'll say, it says join call or something. It should just stick you into the little chat waiting room. Turn off your camera. Make sure your camera's turned off. And audio only. And I'll bring you on to the show. So I'll promote that here for a minute. Stick the link in there a couple of times. And we'll get calls because we had so many great calls last week. And we had a lot of listeners that actually emailed me and said they really enjoyed the calls. So we'll try to do that again here. Anyway, I don't think that I missed anything. Let me scroll through my list of articles and list of links. We did Artemis, we did War with Iran, we did NEOs, Life, Disclosure, J.D. Vance's and Demons, and Charlie Kirk and Salem Radio and all that. So, okay, we got through all that. And, well, there is one other thing we could mention, talk a little bit about Artemis and what Artemis is. And I was thinking something that you might want to take a listen to this. So in Greek mythology, the number 6 is, how would we say? The number 6 is the number of Artemis. I mean, of other numbers, but 6 is usually considered sacred to Artemis. She was born on the 6th day of the month, one day before her twin Apollo. Now, the lunar flyby is going to be on April 6th. The launch time of the rocket was at 6:35 p.m. They also did it on April Fool's Day. Again, I mentioned earlier, so that in and of itself is kind of funny. The Artemis program is intentionally designed as the twin to the Apollo program. Obviously, it's all based on the mythology. And when I was reading about this, it reminded me of that remember the little ritual that they did where they fired the rockets up at the solar eclipse? Remember that? Was it a lunar eclipse? It was a solar eclipse. And that was precisely, I found it in an encyclopedia about how that's what the Egyptians used to do symbolically. They would throw spears at the eclipse to stop the serpent from eating the sun. Okay, well, NASA's clearly just performing yet another ritual here. And by ritual, I just mean that's what they believe. They believe that there's power in this, and that's why they do it. So there's that angle to it. And, of course, Artemis is the goddess of the greening of the earth. And when are they doing this? They're doing it on, basically Easter, the equinox, close to the equinox. So none of that's done accidentally. It's all done, the penile rocket penetrates the oval dome sky, if you will. All right, I've sent the link in the chat a few times. I'll send it a few more times. A few people popped in, a few people popped out. I have at least one listener here in the queue. Don't be afraid to click the link and call in. And I also have a couple of questions here. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here. Someone asked me earlier in the show, like at the very beginning, they said, "What's the situation with gas or prices in Japan?" This is interesting. Let me answer this, and I'll go to Antonio in the chat room here for the call. Please click the link. If you're thinking about calling in, don't be afraid. Just jump in the chat, call in, talk with me. Just like last week, no big deal. Someone asked me that question, and I hadn't thought about it because I've nothing's happened over here. Now, a friend of mine, Chris, sent me a link about the Japanese prime minister talking and some other party member talking about how that there might be energy rationing in Japan. And I can't tell what's real and what's not because there's that thing called Japan Twitter that we did a show on a while ago, and now it's viral. And people were sending all these videos of Japanese officials talking about one thing or another, and they're saying, "Oh, they're banning Islam." And it's like, no, that was something about dissolving parliament. I know that was something about the holidays, just bunches of lies. It's like we do with Arabic too. And I'm pretty sure they were talking about energy rationing, but Japan made an agreement with the Iranians, and they got a bunch of oil. But it's like with the rice thing, the rice issue where they said that there's no rice in Japan, and then I can just go to the store and there's like tons of rice. It's all nonsense. It's all fake. Well, there's something else going around about how Japan is probably because of that video. Japan, the costs are going up. Like, I don't have a car over here, and there aren't many gas stations, but there is actually a gas station really close to my house. I walk past it a lot. The gas is the same price that it's roughly the same price as it always is. It hasn't jumped enough for me to recognize like a noticeable difference. So I don't know where those stories are coming from. Just like with the rice, there's plenty of rice, and there's plenty of fuel as far as I can see. It's also hard to gauge the effects of something like this conflict in a place like Japan because most people don't drive here. Most people walk, most people take the bus, most people ride their bikes. So you don't have that visual display. It's not like America where there's a gas station between every fast food restaurant. So there's like 1,000 gas stations on one road. It's like I don't even know where another gas station is in the city I live in. There's like a service type station across the street, or that's the one I walk by. There might be a gas station at the other mall. I don't even know where the gas stations are. There's like none of them, but I can't find them. So I'm pretty sure that that's also another lie. All right, let's go to Antonio. Make sure you keep your camera off, Antonio. Thank you. You are on the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. Welcome to the show. My home state. How are you? What are your thoughts?
I know. It's good to hear from you, to see you, Ryan. And I hope Clyde gets well soon. Really miss him.
Yes,
it's important really to, I want people to know it's important to support you because you're one of the few voices left that bring out good, solid information. But my comment is this. They're saying it's a war now. Now, the United States Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, states that in order for us to be in a war, they have to approve of it. So, I mean, if the law wasn't being disobeyed, we wouldn't even be in this war. I mean, if Congress.
Are you still there, Antonio? Huh. It appears that Antonio dropped off. If you're still listening, Antonio, maybe your phone died, give us a call back and I'll put you back on the air. Let's go instead to, let's see who we have here. We have Joe. Where are you calling from, Joe? You are on the air.
Hi, Ryan. I'm from Dubuque, Iowa.
From Iowa. How are you doing? What are your thoughts?
I just wanted to say hi to everybody in the chat, and I think you're doing a great job. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think what Antonio was saying was correct, that our Constitution shouldn't allow for us to be in a war that's very much not constitutional.
Do you know or do you remember the last time this happened with Iraq and Congress debated it, kind of, not really, and public kind of debated it media kind of debated it, and we never got approval to go into Iraq. Kind of got a rubber stamp after the fact. And it's the same thing now, where Trump went to oil companies before we went into Venezuela, and we went to defense contractors before we went into Iran, and Congress just gets left on the back burner like it doesn't matter. And I don't know, what scares me, Joe, is that the supporters of the administration, you know how I am, I'm kind of in the middle of the road, but the supporters of the administration are just, they go from peace president to, we got to save the Iranians, like overnight. It's like a literal flipping of a switch. That's very, very scary to me.
Well, it's all bankers' wars. That's where it's all about money and the redistribution of wealth.
Clearly, that is a significant portion of the motivation. Oil is just one part of it, other resources, I'm sure, as well. And of course, I think that resources aren't the only issue. It's obviously about intentions to murder a lot of Iranians, Persians, because in the book of Esther, the Persians stopped the Jews from taking over their society, so the Jews killed a bunch of Persians and then claimed they were victims. That's what the book of Esther is. That's what Purim is. That's why the war was started on Purim. So killing a bunch of Iranians is also part of it, but resources is certainly part of it, and bankers are at the apex of a lot of that. You have other thoughts, Joe?
I'd just like to add that I think it's more than just Iranians. I think it would be everyone. They want to, well, like you said, they want to kill as many people and depopulate the earth as much as they can, because people are waking up.
That's why I believe about, was it 3 years ago I did a show on this, I think. I have no idea when the show was, but I had mentioned that when
I'm sure it's in your archive.
Yeah, whatever the show is I'm thinking about, it's definitely in the archive. But whenever this stuff is exposed, like what happened in Weimar, Germany, when it's exposed, who's behind the LGBTQ and the open borders and the pushing of racism and, quote, multiculturalism, or we could call it cultural Marxism, but toxic multiculturalism, people who push the pornography, people who push the so-called dating apps, the hookup apps, the OnlyFans, when we find out who's behind not just LGBTQ stuff, but who's putting, the drugs into children, who manufactures those drugs, who's doing the surgeries for it, who's putting it in cartoons and movies and television and entertainment. When people realize who's responsible for all that, we get a giant war. And that's what's happening now, I think. You're right. There's too much exposure of, or as people say, there's too much noticing. And so we're going to have a war, and we're going to have an enemy to pull our attention away from the real enemy, who is certainly not our ally by any means whatsoever. And I believe also, to your point, it also says, it's in my new book too, it's the specific verse, I have to look it up, but in the Talmud, it explicitly states that when the Messiah returns, whether that's their version of Trump or it's an AI system, the non-Jews will become slaves to that system, and they will rule over the world. It doesn't matter what we believe. It's just that that's the eschatological view of the rabbis. So we'll all become their slaves, the ones that aren't murdered. That's the agenda anyway. Go
exactly.
ahead,
Joe. I just wanted to add that I did get your book, and I've started to read it. It's a monster of a book, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Thank you for putting it all together. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that you're reading it, and I'm glad that you've recognized how much work went into it. And I'm guessing, just to clarify, I'm assuming that's Protocols of Goyim, or is that a cult arcane?
Yep, of course.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you got a copy of it. Does it look okay? Because I haven't got my
yeah, it looks
copy.
great. I like the cover.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think about it when you get some of it done. It might take you a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe.
You get it done. Let me know.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, Joe. You have a good night. Bye-bye. All right, let's go back to Antonio. Antonio, you are on the air. Go ahead. You got cut off.
Thank you, Ryan. I was just wondering, did something happen? Did I get my full comment in?
You got cut off, I'd say maybe about 25% of the way in, probably.
Okay, let me just say, if the law, the supreme law of the land is the Constitution of the United States. In this war, that it's being called now a war, and of course it is, should have been confirmed by Congress, and it wasn't. The laws have been disobeyed. This war should not be happening at all. We see how far the Israeli lobbyist influence goes, which is part of all the deep state and everything, where we see not even Congress does anything about it. And look how it's escalating. Look at the probabilities that are involved, like you said, of even World War III. I mean, this should not be going on at all. We have a Congress that just, I guess they have enough money. They don't care if they're kicked out. You know, it's just incredible. But that's my comment, you know.
I would say that this is your comment. Obviously, I agree with that assessment, and I've talked about that. I would put that on the we'll say that we'll put that on the political, the legal level of things. When you go a little bit beyond that, as we've been discussing tonight, though, Antonio, you've been listening to the show since the start, I think. What do
Yes.
you make? What do you make of all the other elements that are tied into this? So this stuff about nuclear weapons, and they don't have them. They have. Okay, besides that, missing nuclear scientists, disclosure supposedly happening of alien life in the next couple of weeks. The idea, like that's the rumors. The idea that UFOs, aliens, they're always attracted to nuclear incidents, nuclear weapons. The connection that all these things have to opening gates and portals in the more Lovecraftian perspective on it, and Disclosure Day and demons and J.D. Vance, all that stuff that I talked about tonight.
Oh yeah, all of that is involved, and the aliens would probably get involved if there was a nuclear war, unless they're for depopulation. I mean, we really, I wouldn't know. But as far as the esoteric part, if we look at the Bible, there's a part in the Bible where the angel was blocked by the prince of Persia. And what they're talking about here is a principality, the prince of Persia. And for an angel to be blocked, which they're both, we could say they're gods, you know, we're dealing with a lot of esoteric stuff here also. I mean, we had two beings in the Garden of Eden. We had one being appear to Abraham. We had another being appear to his son with his concubine servant. I mean, and there's gods all over the place. So for all we know, it could be a fight between the gods. But you know, one of my questions is, who obeys more the Ten Commandments? Iran, Netanyahu? I mean, you know, we got to look at what's really going on here.
That's a fine question. Who shut down Easter service year after year in Israel? Who has prevented Christians from worshiping or proselytizing in Israel? Not Muslim.
And yes, sir. And you mentioned that there are a lot of homosexuals in Israel, and we know very well. We know very well that the Bible says that they should be executed. I mean, that's extreme, but that's what the God says. And you know, I mean, there's no Israel, okay? Israel can only exist when the temple is rebuilt by God. 2,000 years ago, the lost tribes of Israel, God dismantled the whole scene and said no more. Everything that's there now is the leftovers being taken over by the lesser powers, by the devil, whatever one wants to call it, or by other gods or whatever. So as far as the esoteric, for all we know, there's two gods battling. I mean, you know, it's just a lot of probabilities. But one thing I know for sure, if they would have obeyed the law, and the law's being broken, and Congress would not have voted to have this war, and we have Joe Kent, which must be related to Clark Kent, Superman, saying that it was the Israeli lobby, and the guy, I mean, he's a hero. He gave up his job, everything, to tell the truth. And
isn't it amazing that the FBI and the DOJ opened up an investigation on him 24 hours after he released the letter?
Of course, it's all amazing. You know, sadly, it all goes back to the Jews. Now, there are a lot of good Jewish people, but we got to understand they're all sucking off of the tit of these major conglomerates and the deep state and everything that is made up out of them. You know, they're the first ones who should be telling them to stop, but they're not going
There
to
are.
because the
There
money.
are. There are. I mean, in Israel, there are plenty of Orthodox Jews and rabbis that try to do that, and they get arrested, they get beaten, they get thrown in jail.
There it is.
In the
Those
same
are the
way,
real.
and the ones in New York that protest. I mean, Rabbi Shmuley did a live stream when he got in the. I don't know if you saw this. Rabbi Shmuley got in the face of an Orthodox Jewish rabbi who said no to Zionism, whatever that might be interpreted as for listeners. But Rabbi Shmuley got in the face of this guy and screamed at him that he's an anti-Semite. I mean, it is it's paranoid, delusional, schizophrenia. It's psychopathy. I appreciate your. Okay, go ahead.
Go
One
ahead.
more
I'm sorry.
comment.
Go ahead.
One more comment,
No,
then I have another call.
you're correct. You're correct. You're correct. I agree with you 100%. You know, it's just like you said, so many things going on and so many probabilities. But if Congress would have done their job, this would not be happening.
Nope, but I don't know if Congress has ever really done their job, at least in my memory. And if you study, Roman history, I'll let you go, Antonio. Thank you for calling.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Okay.
Yep. You have a good night.
Goodbye.
Stay safe. As I've said before, if you study Roman history, more often than not, it was the general public that was responsible for the dilapidated state of the republic, of the empire later, because the public just went along with it, and the Senate just kind of went along with it. It's like, well, whatever. So, okay. Sometimes they were threatened. Sometimes they were held at, sword point by Praetorian Guard. Sometimes they would auction off the throne literally for money. Like, okay, whoever has the most money, you can buy the seat. That's just the nature of the system. That's the nature of the beast. That's how it works. I'll make a comment, though, about the homosexuality that Antonio brought up. I don't agree with the assessment from the Bible, but from a Christian point of view, the idea that there's always this incompatibility here. The Iranians throw gays off of buildings, but their next Ayatollah is also a homosexual. But Christians don't like gays, but they're allies with the gayest city on planet Earth, which is Tel Aviv. It's kind of like this thing with Muhammad, where people say he was a pedophile, but he was also a polygamist who loved women, but he was also now a guy who had gangbangs with. That's intended to be so, because if you figured out what was going on, there would be open rebellion. And before we get to that open rebellion, that's when you get the war. There was a frozen connection there for just a moment, but it should be fixed now. So let's go to another call. And if you're listening to the show right now on the stream and you're thinking about calling in, I've stuck the link in the chat. You've seen how easy it is. I try to be kind. See how kind I am. Please give us a call. It's totally free. And let us know what you think of the subject matter tonight. Let's go to, the name I see is Severe Clear. I'm guessing that's a screen name. I'll bring them on here. And Severe Clear, what is your real name and where are you calling from?
Well, my real name is Linda. I'm calling you from Maryland near the DC area. And
Okay.
this is off
Hi, Linda.
topic, Ryan. But here I've been seeing articles are starting to come out, coverage from the media that there is a new COVID variant called cicada. And I'm thinking that when you put this together with what's going on with the war and gas prices, et cetera, that we are in for a real dystopian ride here in the US. And I wondered what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's kind of reminds me of what people were asking about what's happening here in Japan. about how there's supposedly gas prices going through the roof. And I mean, I haven't seen that. Again, I don't drive a car, so I don't know, but I do walk once in a while past a gas station. Well, frequently actually past a gas station. I don't really see the gas prices going up. Obviously, it could affect other things, but the Japanese government, negotiated and they got oil from Iran and said, we don't want to join in this war. But in regard to the United States, I mean, it's just like with everything else. It's like with the North American Union. That was a big conspiracy theory. And then suddenly, if Trump wants it with Greenland and Canada, you got to do it or you're anti-American. It's like with electric cars. They're really bad. They're going to track you. But if Elon Musk votes Republican, we can have electric cars and that's fine. And then the Democrats are going to burn the electric cars and key them, slash the tires. Yeah, it's like Trump got gas prices down. He's doing such a great job. But now that they're going to go back up and in fact, probably maybe double, triple, who knows? That's okay because we got to stop the Iranians from getting a nuclear weapon. And then we got to stop them from gouging women's eyes out for wearing makeup, even though they don't do that. And we have to stop them from preventing women from getting into college, even though women are actually performing better in the colleges there than they are in America. And it's like everything that was part of the grand conspiracy that I learned about from the earliest age I can remember reading about this type of stuff. All of it's now been justified in the name of Trump or the name of some idea of what America, like this hijacking of the American image, this patriot LARPing. And so I guess to answer your question specifically, to answer it directly is, of course, gas prices are going to go up. That's something that affects most people on a daily basis or weekly basis. And in the process, I don't think the public's going to say or do much about it, with the exception of, people like you and people like this audience. People are going to go along with it because, the talking points change, the script changes. And if it costs $10 to, which in California, I think it already does in some places, if it costs $10 to fill up your, car with 1 gallon of gas, that's okay because we're fighting the Muslims or we're killing people in school in Iran so they don't grow up to be terrorists. I mean, that's what really matters.
Oh, of course, of course. And I think what's especially frustrating is many people that I run into are extremely, Trump, do or die, everything Trump, he can do no wrong. And they're just so brainwashed. It's very frustrating. It's very discouraging. I have a son who's, 21. I worry they're going to, have a draft come up. I know it's just very, very a bad, disturbing, dystopian society we live in, I guess. And, what can you do? I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot.
Well, see, that I know that's a rhetorical question probably, but we should probably try to answer that too. What can we do? I don't know. I think that one thing we can do is, I saw someone just post in the chat room, they said the psyops are becoming more and more painfully obvious. Not just the psyops, it's like the level of propaganda. It's comical. Literally, like the White House is using like sports as propaganda, like cutting Iranian bombs blowing up, or our bombs blowing up Iranian schools, and then putting like football clips in there when people get hit, or using, they're literally using cartoons, like they're using Super Mario cartoons. And it's just like really childish stuff. So I think that the general public might even be, if they're becoming aware of these things and becoming conscious of what's going on beyond the left-right politics, it might just be that people see it and say or think to themselves or subconsciously, like, this is so stupid and childish. Like, what's the point of even participating in this? I'm just going to kind of go live my life, and maybe I personally wrongly, directly or indirectly accuse those people of just being concerned with beer and sports, like Jordan Maxwell used to say. But my point is, in saying this and explaining this, is I think that that might be the best thing to do, is just to be aware of it, not be sucked in by one side of the propaganda machine. You're not pro or not even necessarily anti per se. You're just, it's wrong and there isn't anything you can directly do about it. But if it starts to affect you directly, like with gas prices, you can't, delude yourself into thinking that you're saving Jews for paying $10 a gallon for gas. And if your son, God forbid, gets drafted, like they've increased the drafting age because people aren't going to go, so they're going to increase the drafting age the same day Charlie Cook's mentor dies, which I thought was an interesting synchronicity. And obviously, when stuff like that happens, it gets people thinking. There's been a lot of mothers like you that I've seen on social media who have said, all right, you want to try to draft my children? Why don't you send Barron Trump to fight? Like, I think that there's there might be open rebellion at some point. That really is the only way that anything's going to change. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with. I think that's really what they're pushing for, in the same way that they're pushing in Israel for the world to just level the country, because that's the prophecy. Like, team up on Israel so God saves us. They want Israel to be largely obliterated. And I think the same thing's happening in the US. It's like a criminal that wants to be caught. They want to be caught. They want there to be rebellion so they can stop it and install the full authoritarian system. But anyway, to the point of what we can do is it mixed up in that response in some way? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Please continue, and I'll say my point after that.
Well, no, that's basically it. My point wrapped up in that observation is just that there really isn't much that you can do. So the best thing to do is probably, unless it's directly affecting you, like gas or your son or daughter, or whatever the case might be, which I think they include women now. Didn't they change that relatively recently? They want to include women, which is going to do the same thing in the US they did in Ukraine. Just bring all the men in and start drafting women and just send them into the meat grinder to support some war of banks and companies and religious stuff. But the best thing you can do is just not buy into the propaganda, not be consumed by it or let it consume you. And I'd recommend reading, like, learn about Persian history. Like I saw Mistos Dokos in the chat earlier. Mistos Dokos in the chat. He's been a long time listener, and he really summarized, in his opinion, he really summarized it well. He said, "I watched that Anthony Bourdain documentary where it's like part of his show documentary when he went to Tehran, and he said it made me feel so much worse for what we're doing to the people. Not the government's a separate entity, but what we're doing to the civilians, what we're doing to the people in Iran." And that's probably a way we can respond to a lot of this stuff. Like, go watch stuff like that. Learn about, like, Persian history. What is Iran? Like, what's the country? How old is it? What do the people there believe? What do they do? Are there Christians there? Are there Jews there? Are there other religions there? Rather than just this monolithic Muslim terrorist state, which is not what it is. So you can learn about it. That's what I always recommend. Learn, read.
Yeah, it's definitely a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say I don't always agree with you, but I love listening to your show because it's different perspectives. And, I'm really happy you're here. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I'm glad that we don't agree on everything. That's probably best. If we did, we'd be in an echo chamber.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. Good luck with everything.
Excellent. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. We have time for a few more calls. If you'd like to call in, I will stick that link back in the chat again. I'll stick it in there a few times. I should have asked what we disagree on. It's always a good question, but I don't want to make people feel pressured to answer that. You will find, however, that if you disagree with me, you want to call in and disagree with me, not only is that okay, obviously, but we might actually agree more than, like, if you actually talk to somebody you disagree with, usually you find that you actually have a lot more in common than you would have otherwise assumed. Go through some of these comments as we wait for anybody else, some people to call in as well here. I'll start throwing these up on the screen. Bubba said, "I never voted or registered. I'm not Democrat or Republican. None of that. Don't lump everyone in same categories." Is that for me, or is that for someone else in the chat? I know there's a lot of conversations going on, but I'll take it as directed at me, though. And yeah, of course, I voted for Ron Paul. I did not vote for I've never voted for Democrat, Republican president myself. I have a lot of friends who voted for Obama, and they realized they were duped, and then they voted for Trump, and now they realize they were duped again, and now they're just kind of off the whole thing. So, again, Congress has all the power, but they don't exercise it, so they let it go to despots. But, what do I know? It was the only subject I was good at in school, was history. Yeah, Flux said, "I don't think I'll be voting anymore for a while." Well, you just got to get in there and you got to vote harder, Flux. You got to pull that lever down, push that button. You got to fill in that bubble. It's because you didn't fill in the bubble all the way that Trump broke every promise that he made. And it's different with Trump too, isn't it? It's different because it's sold as American. like really hardcore American, like, you know, strippers and beer and chicken wings and pickup trucks and American flags and barbecues. It's sold as like whatever that image of America is. But it's also weird because it was over 2 administrations over a span of, well, we'll go into 12 years in total. So it wasn't like one and done. It was one something else, and then it's back. And well, it's kind of weird. I don't know if we've seen that kind of a thing before. You see it now. Patriot Girl says, I took my name off the voter roll. Well, that doesn't mean anything. They'll just add you, add you back, and you'll vote Democrat, or you took your name off of one, so your name's probably still on 77 other voter rolls. I don't agree with Sonam Abel that anarchy is the solution. I don't agree with anarchy at all whatsoever, unless you mean just the sentiment of that. The sentiment is that the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants, whether that's literal or figurative, and that is what's going to eventually happen. Let me just be really clear about something. When I say things like that, I don't say that because, if I said that on YouTube or said that on radio, like I could get investigated for calling for revolution or violence. Like, that's not why I'm saying it. The reason I make those observations is the same reason I make observations about, like, well, I'll give you an example. Well, listening to what Trump and all these people said, they're going to take us to war in Iran. You get fired, Ryan. Okay, took us to war in Iran. Nobody came and apologized to me that did those things, that fired me, that criticized me, called me an anti-Semite. Nobody came and apologized. We still went to war with Iran. I said before that, we're going to have this pendulum swing to the hard right. How did I know that? I knew it because that's just like naturally what happens. It's going to be, at midnight it's dark, and at noon it's light. It's not a prediction. It's just an observation of how the world works. And that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a pendulum swinging to the right. Wait until it swings back to the left. Wait until it swings back to the left. It's just bad on the right. And as it goes back and forth, it just builds up and more extreme. And then something breaks. So when I say something such as there's going to have to be a revolution, it's not an advocacy for it, nor am I like fighting back some urge to actually say it because I'm scared. It's just an observation. Like, the only way things will change is if there is a regime change, like a violent uprising. It can't be nonviolent because nonviolence doesn't get you anywhere. It'll have to be violent. And that's not me advocating or backing away from it because I'm scared. It's just like a statement of observation. That's what's going to have to happen. That's what's going to happen. Or the opposite of that is going to be the worst tyranny that's ever existed because of the technologies that now are available. In the same way that, people have, going back to the Iran stuff, when I was doing a lot of those shows a couple of years ago, I had talked about how, I always talk about history, but I had talked about how, like, the rise of Nazism in Germany, and saying that, well, what's happening in the United States is very similar. We have Weimar conditions, and Weimar conditions are going to lead to Weimar solutions. Weimar conditions are the porn and the pedophilia and the sex in the street and the gender bending and the sexualizing and trashing of children, and like just destroying a child, like molesting them, ripping their genitals off, all the stuff that Magnus Hirsch would love to do. And, well, naturally, there's going to be a response to that. And the response to that is you get rid of these people. You go burn their library. The response is some sort of physical action. And it's I never really wanted to be like a history teacher, but there's always like a weird fantasy there. I love the idea of being like a history teacher. Never really wanted to do that, but it's always been in the back of my mind. Like, I guess if everything else in life failed, I'd go be a history teacher. I just love history. And, different perspectives on it. But I feel like now, if I was a professor of history, let's say I was a professor of history, and I was in class and I was teaching the class, I'm like Professor Zhang, who is a professor, but he's not a professor. He didn't say that, but he did say it. And like, I'm just teaching history. And whatever I don't know what the subject is, but whatever I'm teaching, it's like these are the talking points from the book. And whatever those talking points are from the book, someone says, I can't believe you support X. So I'll give you an example. I'm not a teacher, but I've told this story a long time ago. This is, I think, a really good example. I worked at an office supply store. It was an Office Depot. And there was a Puerto Rican girl who worked there with me in the morning. And she was just like, a random person. So nothing about her that was really interesting to have a conversation with. But, there was like a mutual respect as human beings. And we would talk about, what do people talk about? Small talk. It's early in the morning. It's like 5 a.m. We're unboxing things from pallets. And she's like, well, what movies have you seen recently? I said, okay, that's a good question. I saw Dunkirk. She said, oh, I saw that war movie, right? And I said, yeah, it's Christopher Nolan. He did Batman and a bunch of other stuff. I like Christopher Nolan. And she said, was it good? I said, yeah, it was actually really good. I mean, his movies are usually pretty realistic. And she said, well, what did you like about it the most? Like, we're engaging in a conversation. And I said, well, I like that it was historically accurate. I mean, relatively speaking, it was historically accurate. And she said, well, what was accurate about it? And I said, well, a bunch of soldiers on a beach, and Hitler had an opportunity to kill them and stop the war, and he let the soldiers escape. Why? It's historically accurate. It's just like a historical fact. They woke up Hitler, said, hey, we can end this, and at least one aspect of the war, we could end this, and he said, no, it's historically accurate. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That was it. But some other kid, some white, skinny, liberal freak heard that and went to the, like mom and dad and said, this is a quote. I'll never forget this. I should have kept the write-up report because I had a copy of it. Stupid for not keeping that. Ryan this is a quote. I remember this vividly, like my own name. I know my name. I know this statement of what the kid said. Ryan was glorifying Hitler. That's right. And then he told the Puerto Rican girl, at least what I overheard him saying, Ryan's a racist. He hates black people. You shouldn't talk to him. And he got that out of, I like Dunkirk. I thought Christopher Nolan was, as a British director, was pretty accurate in portraying, he didn't actually show Hitler, but pretty accurate in portraying like what happened. Not really accurate, but like more accurate than most movies. More accurate than Saving Private Ryan, which is just a Jewish propaganda film. It was pretty accurate. I mean, some of the conversations the commander said was pretty accurate in terms of like kind of probably what more likely would happen. Out of that, he got Ryan doesn't like black guys. It's like, what? What are you talking about? What is that? How does that even, what are those two things have nothing to do with each other. That's that liberal attitude. Pretty sure that kid was also Jewish. Driving a wedge between some random people that are just having a conversation. And it's just like a stereotype. It's a caricature. And there it is. So my point is, you can just like repeat mainline history. Like, well, the Germans burned the Magnus Hirschfeld Institute of Sexual Science Library. So you're pro book burnings? I'm not pro or anti anything. I'm just saying like, that's what happened. 2 + 2 = 4. So you don't like 3? What is that? And that's where we are. That's the attitude. That's what we're dealing with. Didn't Trump say we're not going to have a war? Also, you want Iranians to die? Yeah, that's not what we're not talking about that. That's not that. What are you talking about? Teresa, you should call in. Teresa says in the chat, what's worse, wokeness or Christian nationalism? Great question. Fantastic question. Wokeness or Christian nationalism? The answer might be that they're the same. Like fundamentally at their core, their own like wokeness is based on this like fundamental misplaced sense of self-righteousness. Christian nationalism is basically based on that, except they kind of offset it a little bit from center, where it's not really the self-righteousness, it's the self righteousness as it relates to believing in Jesus or something, whatever that's supposed to mean. So I think there's some, but it's very similar. Wokeness or Christian nationalism. It's a good question. By the way, anybody else who wants to call in, I'll nudge you again. Please give us a call. Got about 12 minutes, more like 10 minutes, because I'll have to say goodbye. Linda back in the chat says, woke and Christian nationalism are insufferable. Yep. You know, because you know what I was doing the other day? I had seen something about some of some of these videos that I was playing tonight of Trump's, Jesus Christ and the Messiah and all that. Now they're just openly saying it. And I was like, I said this to myself. I said out loud, I said, I don't know what I dislike more. I don't know if I dislike green-haired, liberal Portlandia type women who wear the pink pussy hats and, you won't grab my vagina. And they're like 400 pounds, they couldn't grab their own vagina. Or the Christian nationalists who are just, again, like Linda said, equally insufferable. I don't know which one's worse. I don't think that either one's worse. I think that they're both equally insufferable. And I think it's just so Sonam Ebel, so that's where I am. Yeah, people are realizing that. I wonder, people that are realizing, I think that we're actually Americans. Like those of us who think that we all have the right to practice whatever religion we want, and our speech shouldn't be censored by religious zealots and foreign influencers and foreign governments, or our own government. I feel like there's a bunch of real Americans who have just kind of checked out, but not out of ignorance and beer and football. They've checked out because I think someone had said this in the chat earlier too, like there really isn't an America. It's like too much. It's like, I don't know. It's like Rick and Morty. You go through like a gate or a door or something, right? And when I've seen some Rick and Morty, I don't really like it because the people that made it are just perverts and wife abusers and pedophiles, apologists. But there was an episode where they go through like a door and another time zone or something, timeline. I don't know what it was, and they're only there for just for a few. I think they're aging wine or something. They put it there and they age the wine, and they come back, and like to the people in this other dimension, time goes much different. It's a lot different, and things change. And it's not just in Rick and Morty, but that's the last time I saw something like that in entertainment. And that's kind of what it is. Like you think America's there, you assume America's there, and then you go back and it's like, it's been gone for a long time. Long, long time. Tim Curley says, I love what an oasis Ryan show in this live chat is for real Americans who still think critically. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Linda said it's America KK now, comrade. Yep. And you know what, Linda, that might be the next phase of all this, because when that pendulum, it went from like, let's cut the genitals off and do what the Jews tell us who give us all the money, to let's go to war with Iran and kill everybody in the name of peace, because that's where all the money's coming from to push us to do this. And then it's going to go back to the other side, and it's going to swing real hard. It's going to swing for the fences, and the fences, it's like one of those Ohtani home runs that just goes into the parking lot. You're like, this guy's definitely a Japanese robot. It's just going to go out of the park. Where when it goes back to the left, you might actually have a Bolshevik revolution. You might actually have marauding groups of people that go into government offices and just murder the officials. Because that's how history shows us these things happen. One extreme to the other, to the other. I mean, if you had a leaking pipe, and you, let's say you have a leaking pipe, and it's old pipe, old materials, and you can't get Mario to help you fix it, so you got to fix it yourself. And you tighten one part, you think you got it fixed, but the pipe's so old. the pressure changes and then another part of it bursts. Like Eddie in Vegas Vacation, where he's like, or no, it wasn't Eddie. It was Clark. Clark was at the dam, and he had putting the bubble gum in all the little holes. The water's coming out of it. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit. I see we have another caller coming in here. I'll wrap up my thought. We'll go to the call real fast. We have Flux is calling in. I think that's Flux. Name and where you're calling from, sir, ma'am.
It's Todd. I'm calling from Indiana.
Howdy, Todd in Indiana.
Hey,
you got
I
about
just want to say
5 minutes, so go ahead.
okay. Let's say hi to the chat. I think I pretty much agree with most of what you're saying. I think that the mental illness is coming from both sides, from the left and the right. They're just it's two varying degrees of insanity. Just two different spectrums.
Yes. It's like two car crashes where the drivers die. They're both horrific. People die in both, but they might happen differently. Maybe one got hit by a train. Maybe one got hit by a truck. Both people still died. It's just one extreme or the other. America dies either way.
Yeah, it's sad because it's like they just go around aimlessly, just following their programming, not realizing that they're like going off the edge of a cliff.
What's the thing that most concerns you, or the thing that maybe you're most interested in about all this? Or in regard to what we discussed tonight with the synchronicities between the disclosure, the Artemis and the war and the missing scientists and all this?
It's interesting. I'm not sure, what the the connections are all, with all that. Just seems to me like that a lot of people the masses are just oblivious to what's really going on, and it's. I know people are starting to wake up, starting to realize, to some degree, but I don't know if, is it in time? Is it too late?
Too
I
late,
don't know.
yeah. Well, I think that's why we're getting this nice dosage of George Bush 2.0, because people have begun to realize and ask questions about not just what's going on and not just corruption, but like they've started to point out certain groups of people that are responsible for it and realize, oh, wait, maybe the Muslims aren't necessarily our friends, but I know that these people aren't our friends. And, well, we can't have that, which is why, small example of that is why Ellison bought TikTok. And I think that's why, it's the same thing that happened in Germany in the 20s and 30s. History repeating itself, to say the least.
Yeah, sadly, it's true.
Sadly so, my friend. Anything else? You got about 2 minutes.
No, well, I don't really have anything else to add. I just wanted to call in and say hey and give a little bit of my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that you're always commenting on the show and you're always listening. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it too. I appreciate all the hard work you put into making your shows, and I'm hoping to get one of your books. I just haven't haven't got the money to spend, to get, one, here, but I will here soon.
No problem. Maybe someone in the chat can be kind enough and buy you a copy. Anybody want to buy this kind gentleman a copy of the book? The thing is, I wish that I could sell them cheaper. I just don't have like a distributor and a contract.
Oh no, that's not a big deal. I just, right at the moment, I'm not like, hard up for cash. It's just, I gotta.
Oh, I understand.
Just gotta spend money, as wisely as I can.
Well,
yeah, I appreciate all you do. I'll get off of here and let you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you supporting the show. You have a good night. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Goodbye.
Well, on that note, there's the whole we don't really have money for childcare thing. Did you hear the president talk about that? We got money for a lot of war, but we don't have money for child care. Did you hear that audio clip? And that kind of, the issue where like the average American might not be totally hard up, but they have a little bit of trouble, paying bills and, buying things that might be considered luxury like a book. But, I'm not advocating for quote socialism, but I feel like a functioning society would put an emphasis on childhood education, childcare, especially if parents have to work. But we can't afford that.
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare.
And while I agree with the sentiment that it has to be up to a state, well, we can't really take on all these countries either. We can't take on Iran, their proxies, Russia, China, and the rest of the world that will eventually team up against us when we have murdered enough of their children.
We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, obviously it's a state thing. Obviously it's like a local thing. Obviously it's the government shouldn't be just taking taxpayer money and then giving it to people. That's not what I'm saying. But like, if we're going to do that kind of stuff with money, I'd much rather see the government give the money to people to help them take care of their kids as opposed to spend it on tomahawks to blow up schools in Iran. If we're going to do it anyway, at least use it for something that could be beneficial to human civilization. But we choose, apparently, we don't do that. I was going to play you this other clip. Should I play this other clip? We're about out of time. I could get a little bit of it in here.
Running the best HR for Donald Trump and JD Vance.
Give us a sense of what your prognosis is in the national security and defense sphere in terms of personnel, maybe also policy, insofar as you can convey what Linda McMahon has been up to. Is it still going to be emphasis on increasing defense spending? Elements of the Republican Party are skeptical of what they call the military-industrial complex in a disparaging way. Other elements of the party may be more favorable toward that. How is that tension being navigated, if it is, in your work thus far?
So we bring in talent, right? So talent. So how does it go? People with deep national security experience. People with deep defense experience.
Give us some examples.
No.
Why not?
Because that's not the way it works.
Okay.
The way it works is I build basically, the way I say it is a mosaic of talent, and the president of the United States is going to choose from that mosaic of talent. So that's my job. But you think about it, we have technology, huge focus on the capacity to improve the technology of the U.S. People who have vast experience across his first administration in business, the prior administrations. I mean, they're all coming.
Is Jared Kushner coming back?
I don't comment on people. I told you that's not it. But Jared Kushner is a big help to me.
That is the friend of the notorious human trafficker, sexual abuser, Jeffrey Epstein. That would be Howard Lutnick, the guy that also lied about his connections to Jeffrey Epstein and yet somehow still has employment. And that would be Howard Lutnick explaining to press about how he is selecting the presidential cabinet for Trump the second time around and how Jared Kushner is a big part of it. And so you have two Jews, one a billionaire, one if Howard Lutnick's maybe not a psychopath, I don't know if he's a psychopath, but Jared Kushner's a psychopath. That's how I knew that we were going to go to war with Iran. That clip, and then pulling up all the people that they selected and saying the same types of things about Iran. That's how I knew. That's how a lot of people knew, probably. Sure, there's more than just me that knew that. And that's Howard Lutnick. And who is he? Another Jewish moneybags who, like Stephen Miller, controls Trump, just like J.D. Vance's, secretary is also a Jewish handler. Just a bunch of Muslims, tons of Muslims. And Linda, I started to think that. I wonder if Kushner is Mossad. If he's not Mossad, he's at least carrying out their their bidding. Oh, Patriot Girl, don't bring up Dan Bongino. What a piece of subhuman filth that person thing is. Sellout traitor. He's going after Thomas Massey. They've all given the instructions. They all have the money in their pockets. Everybody's going after Thomas Massey now. And Joe Kent and anybody else who makes a statement of fact about reality. Not that I just trust Joe Kent, for the record. I did a whole show on that. I don't know if I trust Joe Kent. Anyway, I think we're about out of time. Thank you for calling into the show tonight. Thank you for being a part of the show tonight. Whether you're listening live or you're in the chat and you're listening later, thinking that it's live, trying to get in the chat, or if you're on Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, etc. Thank you for tuning into The Secret Teachings. tstradio.info is the website. Please go to the website. Please get a copy of one of my books like Occult Arcana, Liberty Shrugged, and I should say, Protocols of Goyim. All available on the website. And if you're watching the video, you should know that there is an audio version where 99% of the people actually listen to the show. If you are on Spreaker, you help us additionally. So if you're going to listen to the advertisement version of the show, where I don't put the ads in there, Spreaker does that. But if you're going to listen to that part of the show, try to listen on Spreaker because they pay us additional for those advertisements. If you don't like them, like I don't like the ads either, but I don't get paid $7,000 by a foreign government to sell propaganda to you. So you get something more real here. At least I think it's pretty real. Try to be pretty real. Patriot Girl, thank you. Misto Stokos, everybody in the chat, Son of Ebel, Joe Ryder, Tim Curley, Linda, Frederick, and so on and so forth. My friend Teresa up in Canada. I'm sure you're feeling real good, Teresa. There's a Canadian going to the moon. That makes your life better, doesn't it? Woo, it's great. Have a great night, great morning, afternoon, whenever and wherever you're listening. And click the links below. That's where all the info is for the show. If you have any questions, otherwise, email me, and we will talk on the next broadcast. Have a great night.